Chapter 900. Zhou Qianzhong and Wakako did not have much of a relationship, but he was from the same sect as Jiang Chun. Now, since Jiang Chun wanted his help, Zhou Qianzhong naturally would not refuse. However, Kunlun Mountain was not a pushover either. They had a deep foundation and many powerhouses under them. There was no lack of peak chief gods. Therefore, facing Zhou Qianzhong's threat, the few elders of Kunlun Mountain did not take it seriously at all. Zhou Qianzhong, you have no right to speak here. Just a mere Nine Heavens sect holy son. You have the qualifications to speak with us on equal terms? The attitudes of the few elders of Kunlun Mountain were very contemptuous. One of them even stepped on Wakako's body. You all very well. Suddenly, an extremely cold voice rang out. Everyone turned around and saw Jiang Chun walk out of the crowd with a gloomy expression. On his body, killing intent roared like a strong wind. When his eyes opened and closed, there seemed to be sword light rising and falling. Silly boy. Good boy. We were still looking for you, and you delivered yourself to our door. The Kunlun Mountain Elder said coldly. Hand over the Haotian stone and return our Kunlun Mountain blessed land. You all deserve to die. Jiang Chun ignored him, and his voice became colder and colder. Like the cold wind of December, it swept across everyone's hearts. Even their divine souls were trembling. What are you doing? Zhou Qianzhong hurriedly pulled Jiang Chun and said softly, You're not their match. Leave this to me. You can't intimidate them. Jiang Chun shook off Zhou Qianzhong's hand and walked in front of the few elders step by step. Then, Jiang Chun suddenly raised his head and stared at the person in front of him. He said, If you hurt them in the slightest, I'll break an inch of your body. If you cripple their cultivation, I'll destroy your divine soul. Boy, just a lower true god. How dare you say such arrogant words? You don't know death. One of the elders of Kunlun Mountain shouted angrily. He raised his palm, and a mountain seemed to appear in his palm. The palm print descended, covering this part of the sky. Rumbling sounds accompanied by the power of the great path descended. At this moment, Nine Heavens sect was shocked and shouted angrily, He's from my Nine Heavens sect. However, at this moment, it was already too late for Nine Heavens layer to say anything. He was very strong, but how could he be a match for the elders of Kunlun Mountain? These people were all sovereigns. I only want 1% of the profits. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes and whispered. No one understood what he meant. However, while others didn't understand, there was one person who was very clear about this. Just as he finished speaking, a fatty rushed out. He raised his hand and sent a palm into the sky, shattering the Kunlun Mountain Elder's palm print. Then, the fatty straightened the corner of his clothes and bowed to the elders of Kunlun Mountain in front of him. He smiled and said, I am from Chinchou Gambling House. I will lose every bet I make. Chinchou Casino? Second Master, you lose every bet. In the crowd, there was a commotion, and there were even exclamations. Many people had heard of Chinchou Gambling House, but few had seen it before. It was because Chinchou Gambling House did things that were not presentable. Therefore, Chinchou Gambling House rarely showed up. Even if he did show up, he would not directly reveal his identity. At this moment, the crowd was surprised. The second master of the 1,000 Years Gambling House, Sure Loser, had intervened. Was he trying to protect Jiang Chun? Chinchou Gambling House? What does this have to do with you? The leading elder of Kunlun Mountain said coldly, Chinchou Gambling House's reputation is not good. Revealing your identity in public. Are you afraid of being surrounded? Surrounded? Do they dare? The smile on Chinchou Gambling House's face suddenly disappeared, and it turned into a look of contempt with a hint of disdain. He said, A few old things bullying a child? Although my Chinchou Gambling House is doing things in the dark and can't be seen in public, what Kunlun Mountain is doing now, can it be seen in public? The little one is no match, so the big one steps in? Kunlun Mountain is really good. At this point, Must Lose Every Bet waved his hand, and a mini golden fan appeared in his hand. He quickly waved it and said, The weather is really hot. A fatty like me hates hot weather the most. This is the 1,000 Autumn's golden fan. You don't lose every bet you make. The head of the Thousand Years Gambling Manor will win every bet. At this moment, everyone's expressions changed. They didn't recognize every bet must win, but they recognized this little golden fan. This was the face of the Thousand Years Gambling House, and also the status symbol of the Thousand Years Gambling House's head. Kid, I'm sorry, but Must Lose and I are twins. Something came up. Must Win Every Bet blinked at Jiang Chun and said, You didn't expect this, did you? I really didn't notice it. Jiang Chun was stunned. Ever since he had won every bet in this small town, he really hadn't noticed this. At this moment, many people took a few steps back. Even the few elders of Kunlun Mountain had their faces tensed up. This was because everyone knew one thing. Must lose, every bet must leave. They were all alone and came and went alone. When Must Win Every Bet must leave, he was very ostentatious. Even if he didn't have more than a dozen king gods by his side, he had at least 3 to 5. Moreover, they were all peak king gods. I'm quite fated with this silly little brother. Must Win Every Bet must win every bet must leave smiled and said, This matter now can also be considered as my must win every bet must leave. After saying that, he looked at Jiang Chun and asked, How do you want to settle this? If they hurt my brother, I'll break an inch of their bodies. Jiang Chun said coldly, An inch? Must Win Every Bet must leave frowned and said, An inch this. As he said that, Must Win Every Bet must leave suddenly waved his hand. The golden fan in his hand split apart and turned into golden formation stones. A formation was formed in an instant like a cage. Golden chains burst forth, imprisoning the few elders of Kunlun Mountain. Then, Must Lose Every Bet must leave waved his hand and condensed a ruler with his divine power. Then he walked in front of one of the elders. Then, in front of everyone, he started to use the ruler to measure the scale. I say, you don't have to be so serious, right? Jiang Chun was also confused. I asked you to break an inch, and you're really not willing to do more? As a person, there must be rules. Not a little less, not a little more. Just like the interests of Chinchio Gambling House, it's the same. Must Win Every Bet must leave laughed. As they spoke, everyone realized that Must Win Every Bet must leave's ruler was actually measuring the top of one of the elders' head. F***CK. What's the top of the head doing? If the top of the head is broken by an inch, wouldn't that mean death? Someone exclaimed. Could it be that Must Win Every Bet must leave was going to start a massacre today? Could it be that Chinchio Gambling House was so confident that they dared to completely fall out with Kunlun Mountain? Silly little brother, where do you think I should break an inch? Must Win Every Bet must leave asked. They wanted to destroy my brother's cultivation before. Then, I'll break their cultivation. Jiang Chun said softly, showing no mercy at all. Chapter 901. Lose an inch of cultivation? How was that possible? Everyone was very confused, but when all bets knew what Jiang Chun meant, the next moment he slowly raised his arm. A cold light flickered in his palm, and his entire arm was like a long saber, slashing down at one of them. How dare you? That person exclaimed as he stared at When All Bet's palm. That was clearly going to slash his cultivation. Why wouldn't I dare? When All Bet's whisper did not stop at all. A cold light slashed into the Kunlun Mountain Elder's body. A stream of blood spurted out from his mouth, and wisps of Shinchi shards spread out from his body. Then, they turned into clouds and smoke and disappeared. In an instant, everyone could feel that the Kunlun Mountain Elder's cultivation had fallen from over-god to god. Furthermore, the eyes of some people with high cultivation levels lit up when they saw that cracks had appeared on the Elder's Tao foundation. How ruthless! Someone was shocked. That slash had not only slashed the Elder's cultivation, but it had also slashed a crack in his Taoist foundation. It would be difficult for this person to step into the over-god realm in his life. When all bets, you have to think carefully. Doing this is equivalent to falling out with Kunlun Mountain. War is inevitable. Stop it. The remaining 2 elders were pale, but their attitude was still very tough. They were still threatening When All Bets. Even if the current leader of Kunlun Mountain comes, he won't dare to threaten me. When all bets whisper slashed out two cold lights. The next moment, the remaining two elders of Kunlun Mountain had their cultivation slashed, and their Taoist foundations cracked. Brother Nahan, is it done? After doing all that, when all bets put away the formation, and the small golden fan returned to his hand, he looked at Jiang Chun with a smile, as if asking for Jiang Chen's opinion. It's about time. Jiang Chen nodded, but his heart ached. He knew very well that he could only get 10% of the profits from this bet. It was too painful. However, for his brother, what was a mere wealth? Are you guys all right? At this moment, Jiang Chen came to Jiang Lu and Wakako's side and healed them with his divine power. Boss, it's fine, Jiang Lu said with a simple and honest smile. My saint body is getting stronger and stronger. I don't need you to help me. I will recover soon. My sacred body is not weak either. Wakako raised his eyebrows and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Tianzi and Yin Linjiao and said with disdain, two pieces of trash. Today's matter. It's not over. Dongfang Wushuang also stood up with a gloomy face. He even took out a decree in front of everyone. The decree burned and turned into a ray of light that disappeared into the void. Apparently, Dongfang Wushuang was furious. He was asking for help. It has nothing to do with us, Tianzi said coldly. Yin Linjiao and I are not the great saint. We don't have the right to order these elders around. Indeed, Yin Linjiao said in a low voice. We admit defeat, but you better watch your mouth. The word trash doesn't apply to us. You guys are really trash. Jiang Chen turned around and looked at Tianzi and Yin Linjiao. Then he looked at Chenjulu and said in a low voice, if my brother says you are trash, then you are trash. Don't you believe me? When I come back from High Heaven Pavilion, I will deal with you one by one, Jiang Chen said. Although Jiang Chen always won his bets and had disabled the three elders of the Kunlun Mountain, he was still angry. Silly. You. Yin Linjiao's face turned ugly and said in a low voice, your brothers are really strong, but as for you, Lower True God? Lower True God? So what? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and pointed at Chenjulu. It's him. I could suppress him with a flip of my hand. Silly. What are you talking about? Don't mess around. Must win every bet hurriedly stopped him. If he allowed Jiang Chen to continue talking, he would definitely reveal everything about the battle between him and Chenjulu. In short, if you don't accept it and think that you are not trash, then I will fight you here when I come back from High Heaven Pavilion. At that time, I will let you know that my two brothers are right. After that, Jiang Chen stood up and walked toward the town. Jiang Lu and Wakako followed behind him. When they passed by Tianzi and the others, Wakako raised his middle finger and said contemptuously, when my boss makes his move, not only will you be trash, but you will also be famous trash. You. Tianzi was furious. However, he had become Wakako's disciple, so he had no confidence in himself. On the other side, Chenjulu looked at Jiang Chen's back thoughtfully. He wondered if there was something fishy about the battle between him and Jiang Chen. Speaking of which, Kunlun Mountain has indeed gone overboard this time. After a few breaths, Chenjulu looked at Tianzi and Yin Linjiao and sighed. You have to be able to accept your loss. When did I become a sore loser? If those old bastards wanted to make their move, how could Yin Linjiao and I stop them? Tianzi said angrily. He felt a headache coming on. 3 elders of Kunlun Mountain had their cultivations cut off. This matter had become a big deal, and he and Yin Linjiao would be responsible for it. They were afraid that it would affect their status in Kunlun Mountain. Unlucky, unlucky. Not only did we lose, but we also got into trouble. Yin Linjiao said coldly, forget it. We can't beat those 2 idiots, but we can still beat Silly. When the time comes, we will vent our anger on him. Maybe you should avoid the battle. Chenjulu frowned and said, I have a feeling that Silly is not simple. Perhaps his strength is not below ours. How strong can a lower true god be? Yin Linjiao said contemptuously. He waved his hand impatiently and said, disperse, disperse. This is so embarrassing. In the end, The people outside the town dispersed and returned to their residences in the town. I just wanted to do something, and something happened. At this moment, in the room of the inn, the face of the elder of the power sect was red. Obviously, he was furious. When Jianglu and Yin Linjiao were fighting, he was not there. Otherwise, he would not have let the elders of Kunlun Mountain hurt Jianglu. Elder, it's okay. I am fine now. Jianglu smiled and said, this time it's all thanks to boss. I also have to thank that person called Must Win Every Bet. Of course, we have to thank him. The elder of the power sect nodded and waved his hand. He set up a formation around the room, isolating it from the outside world. Then he stared at Jianglu and said, you call that silly guy boss? You guys ascended from the godless continent? Yes. Jianglu nodded. He ascended from the godless continent, and he calls him boss. Then his identity. The eyes of the elder of the power sect shone. As far as I know, in recent years, only a few of you have ascended, right? Chapter 902. Jianglu was simple and honest by nature. After hearing the elder's words, he nodded and said, recently, only a few of us have ascended. Then why did you call him Big Brother? The elder of the power sect frowned. Light flickered in his eyes. He is Tianchun? As soon as he said that, he realized that he had exposed Jiang Chen's identity. He was terrified and held the elder's hand. With a hint of pleading, he said, Elder, please don't tell anyone. Fool, if I wanted to tell anyone, I would have told the sovereign of light and martial god. The elder smiled and said, don't worry. Actually, ever since you called him boss, I had some guesses. The elder said, I just didn't expect your boss's cultivation to be so low. Boss is very strong. Just because his cultivation is low doesn't mean his strength is low. Jianglu explained, that's right. The great Tianchun Supreme, being naturally, has his own uniqueness. The elder nodded, but his expression soon became serious. Since he had guessed Jiang Chen's identity, the others could do the same, too. Maybe it wouldn't be long before Jiang Chen's identity was exposed. By then, Jiang Chen would have to face the pursuit of many peak sovereign gods. By then, could Jiang Chen still survive? No one is a fool. If we think about it carefully, we will naturally know his identity. The elder sighed and said, Tianchun is in big trouble. Then what? Can the elder help him? Jianglu was worried. He would rather be in trouble than see Jiang Chen in danger. However, the elder shook his head and sighed. Although the elder is also a top sect, we can't protect him. Silly child, you should know that Tianchun's enemy is the 36 strongest sovereign gods in the divine world of 9 heavens. At this point, the elder narrowed his eyes as if he was thinking about something. After a few breaths, he looked at Jianglu and asked, do you want to protect your boss? Of course, as long as I can do it. Jianglu said seriously. Jianglu remembered very clearly that if he hadn't met Jiang Chen, he would probably still be that little fatty who was bullied and humiliated. He might even be dead. For Jianglu, Jiang Chen was not only his boss but also his brother, and more importantly, his benefactor. Then, let's become stronger. The elder of the power sect said, I'll send you to the Devil's Denver. If you can come out alive, the position of the great holy son of the power sect will be yours, and your strength will increase by leaps and bounds. In fact, he's even comparable to a chief god. Devil's Den? Jianglu was puzzled. He had not been in the power sect for long. Although he had heard of the Devil's Den, he had never been there. Jianglu only knew that it was the ultimate training ground of the Li Zone. However, since ancient times, most of the people who entered the Devil's Den to train had died. Those who came out alive were mostly bedeviled and delirious. However, when he thought of his boss's impending doom, Jianglu couldn't care less. Without even thinking, he nodded and said, I'll go to the Devil's Den. You're really willing to give up your life for him? The elder of the power sect was stunned. The elder of the power sect had lived for so long. What had he not seen? Killing one's father, killing one's son, turning against one's brother, and even one's closest companion. In this world, there was no such thing as pure friendship. However, in Jianglu, he saw a pure friendship that seemed to have been lost for a long time. I firmly believe that as long as we can help boss, none of us will back down, Jianglu said seriously. The people he was talking about were Wakako, Xiao Qingyi, and the others. Perhaps they were not strong enough to defend one side, but as long as Jiang Chun said the word, they would go through mountains of swords and seas of fire. You don't have to go to the High Heaven Pavilion. I'll take you to the Power Sect, and you can enter the Devil's Den directly, the elder of the Power Sect said. The elder of the Power Sect said, before that, say goodbye to your boss. Perhaps you won't be able to come back. I think there's no need to say goodbye, Jianglu said softly. I can't hide my words. When I say goodbye to boss, I'll tell him everything. If he knows that I'm going to the Devil's Den, there's a high chance of death. He definitely won't agree. Then just think about it. The elder of the Power Sect sighed and patted Jianglu's shoulder. The Golden Age is about to arrive. Perhaps you guys still have a chance of survival. At the same time, in another room of the inn, Wakako's face was as black as ink, and his heart was filled with resentment. Dongfang Wushuang, who was at the side, also felt uncomfortable. He was holding his breath. He had clearly won, but his injuries were even more serious than Chen Zhulu and the others. Those old farts are really shameless, Wakako said in a deep voice. Then he asked directly, does your Dongfang family have such shameless old things? Dongfang Wushuang was confused and asked, what do you mean? Kunlun Mountain is shameless, and the Dongfang family also sent a few shameless people. An eye for an eye, Wakako said. As soon as he said this, Dongfang Wushuang's expression became strange. After all, there were definitely a few shameless people in every sect. However, was it really good to say that about his own family? In short, Dongfang Wushuang would not say it. Anyway, I've already called people over. This matter is not over, Dongfang Wushuang said coldly. It's the first time I've been so wronged in my life. Hearing this, Wakako emphasized again. It's best if it's the shameless kind, the kind that can directly put down his face and make a move on Shinjulu and the others. Who cares if they're bullying the weak? Suppress them all. Cough, cough. Don't be so direct. I understand. Dongfang Wushuang wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, you'll understand when the time comes. Speaking of this, Dongfang Wushuang stared at Wakako for more than 10 breaths of time. You? Wakako's expression froze, and he scolded angrily. What are you looking at? What kind of gaze is that? If you want to look at those women. No. What are you thinking about? Dongfang Wushuang rolled his eyes, and then asked tentatively, your boss has an extraordinary identity, right? What do you want to say? Wakako suddenly stood up, and killing intent burst out from his body. Even if he was on good terms with Dongfang Wushuang now, he would definitely take action against anything that would harm Jiang Chun. Moreover, Wakako was not stupid. As soon as he heard Dongfang Wushuang's words, he knew what this guy was going to say. He's Tian Chen's reincarnation, right? Dongfang Wushuang waved his hand and said, don't worry, the Dongfang family has no ill intentions towards him. And then? Wakako asked, even I can guess his identity, do you think others can't? Dongfang Wushuang said, it won't take long for his identity to be exposed. At that time, who could protect him? As long as I'm still alive, even if I'm facing a peak master god, I dare to take action. Wakako was very domineering, but his words seemed meaningless. Chapter 903. It was true that Wakako dared to attack anyone he met. However, what if he met a peak master god? Even with his current cultivation, it would be difficult for him to fight against an ordinary master god. If you want to protect him, you can only become stronger, Dongfang Wushuang said in a deep voice. Also, you need someone to support you. Otherwise, if those 36 peak master gods attack, you won't be able to stop them with just a few people. Wakako knew this very well, but he was used to living alone. At most, he would be with Jiang Chun. Now he was asked to find a backer, live under someone else's roof, and listen to other people's arrangements. Of course, Wakako would not agree, and he would feel uncomfortable. However, he had also thought about it. Sometimes, for some things for a person, he should give up some things. Come to my Dongfang clan, Dongfang Wushuang said. I see you as a brother. From now on, when I become the clan leader of the Dongfang clan, you will be the highest consecrator. Then I still have to listen to your orders. Wakako raised his eyebrows and said, You loser. Dongfang Wushuang was speechless, but he did not know how to refute. After all, although Dongfang Wushuang only lost a little in the battle between the two, he still lost in the end. Dongfang Wushuang admitted this. The Dongfang clan has a deep foundation. If you come to the Dongfang clan, you can use the power of the Dongfang clan in the future. Dongfang Wushuang said, Of course, I also have my own selfish motives. With 2 overlord bodies in the clan, the Dongfang clan can also be glorious. If you dare to lie to me, I'll kill you. Wakako was very direct. This was considered a promise. Then, Dongfang Wushuang stood up and said, Let's go. There's no need to go to Lingxiao Pavilion. Since Jiutian Cheng dares to come, he must be confident. Then where are we going? Wakako asked. Back to the clan, to gain experience, Dongfang Wushuang said. The world is saying that the Golden Age is about to begin. At that time, Divine Kings will no longer be the peak battle power. If we want to protect ourselves in the Golden Age, we need strength. Strength? Wakako said softly, his eyes shining. With strength, I can help boss. I really miss the days when I was on the godless continent and the hot-bloodedness of fighting alongside boss. In the end, Wakako left and followed Dongfang Wushuang to the Dongfang family. At this moment, in Jiang Chen's room, my identity is about to be exposed. Jiang Chen sighed. He glanced at the 9 Heavens heavy layer and asked, Can the 9 Heavens heavy layer protect me? As long as Imperial Father returns, he will be able to protect you, Zhou Tianzhong said. However, even he did not know where Jiu Shun and Jiu Qiansui had gone, much less when they would return. Therefore, it was hard to say whether or not he could save Jiang Chun. However, Jiu Tianzhong told Jiang Chun with absolute certainty that as long as he did not leave 9 Heavens sect, not many people in this world would be able to harm him. I have a hunch that this time, when we go to High Heaven Pavilion, there will be some trouble, Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. Recently, his heart had been throbbing, and he had a premonition that something big was about to happen. However, Jiang Chun did not know what would happen. In short, this matter was going to be very big. May I ask if 9 Heavens Sect's holy son, Jiu Tianzhong, and Silly Girl are here? At this moment, a group of people arrived outside the inn. These people's cultivation was not high, and some of them had not even become true gods. They stood at the entrance of the inn and shouted, The people from High Heaven Pavilion are here. Jiang Chen looked through the window and saw the clothes of the group of people. They were from High Heaven Pavilion. Jiu Tianzhong also glanced at them, and his face immediately turned ugly. They are looking down on us, Jiu Tianzhong said coldly. They sent a group of bastards to receive us. After all, we're going to visit the mountain. How can they treat us well? How can they treat us well? Jiang Chun said in annoyance. Let's go. Then Jiang Chun, Jiu Tianzhong, Jiu Tianxia, and Blackface walked out of the inn. The people who received them only glanced at Jiang Chun and the others, then turned and left. How dare they? Jiu Tianzhong's face turned even uglier. They didn't even say a word of courtesy? Who cares? Jiang Chun chuckled. When the time comes, we'll beat them to death. At this point, Jiang Chun could not help but look at Blackface and ask, If we meet an overgod, it should be fine, right? If they are below peak overgod, there should be no problem, Blackface said. Master, is High Heaven Pavilion fun? Jiu Tianxiao blinked her big watery eyes and asked curiously. It is. Jiang Chun smiled and patted Jiu Tianxiao's head. When the time comes, we'll play however you want. Little sister, this time, I'll get justice for you, Jiu Tianzhong said seriously. Then, the group followed the group of people who received them out of the town and entered 10,000 Insect Valley. There was a large group of people behind them. These were all people from top sects, and they all planned to go to High Heaven Pavilion to check out the situation. After all, High Heaven Pavilion had not appeared in the world for a long time. They all wanted to know how strong High Heaven Pavilion was now. Along the way from 10,000 Insect Valley, they followed a special path to avoid poisonous insects. It was not until 2 hours later that they arrived at High Heaven Pavilion's mountain gate. High Heaven Pavilion's mountain gate sat in front of a cliff. The palace was grand and majestic, and there were many rare treasures planted around it. Of course, this was not the key. After all, every sect was like this. However, what was shocking was that the two gatekeepers on both sides of the mountain gate were actually gods. Using her eminence to guard the gate, High Heaven Pavilion's foundation is so deep. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. One had to know that her eminence was already very strong. Any higher, and one would either become a titled god or an overgod directly. Under normal circumstances, if her eminence was not an elder in the various sects, she would at least be a big shot. Everyone were here. At this moment, the leader turned around and looked at Jiang Chen's group. Let's be frank. Since you're here to visit the mountain, then let's start here. 2 people per gate. There are a total of 9 gates. If you can pass through all 9 gates and reach High Heaven Pavilion's main hall, then High Heaven Pavilion will be convinced, said another young man. His cultivation was not yet God, but his tone was arrogant. Especially when he looked at Jiang Chen's group, there was contempt in his eyes. You mean, from here on out, we'll have to fight our way up? Zhou Tianzhong raised his eyebrows. Fine. We're here to cause trouble anyway. There's nothing much to say. When it's time to be arrogant, then we should be arrogant. Jiang Chen nodded. Let's be clear. If you bully the weak with your cultivation base, then don't blame High Heaven Pavilion for doing the same, said the leader. When these words came out, Jiang Chen and Zhou Tianzhong looked at each other and almost burst out laughing. Bully the weak with their cultivation base? Using cultivation base to suppress? As long as High Heaven Pavilion doesn't do that. Chapter 904. The reason why Zhou Tianzhong had announced this was because he was worried that High Heaven Pavilion would bully the weak. But now, High Heaven Pavilion had spoken first, which was exactly what Jiang Chen and the others wanted. 9 gates. How do you want to pay your respects? Jiang Chen asked. We're all smart people. The so-called pay your respects is to cause trouble. The youth's eyes flashed coldly as he said, since we're here to cause trouble, we naturally have to rely on strength. The first 3 gates, battle. The middle 3 gates, formation. The last 3 gates, surpass. Battle and formation are understandable, but what does the last 3 gates mean? Zhou Tianzhong asked. If you reach the last 3 gates, you'll naturally understand, the youth said mockingly, his eyes filled with killing intent. After saying this, he waved his hand and took out a piece of silk. It was actually a life and death contract. As cultivators, sometimes it's inevitable that we don't know the severity of our actions. If you accidentally die here, then you can't blame High Heaven Pavilion, the youth said. How about you sign this life and death contract first? When the time comes, no matter which side dies, you can't find trouble with the other side. As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chen laughed, seemingly indifferent, and said to Zhou Tianzhong, it looks like it's a battle to the death. You want to kill us here? Zhou Tianzhong's face was gloomy. This was openly trying to kill them. All around, those who had come to watch the battle were also shocked. High Heaven Pavilion's approach was completely out of line. Since ancient times, anyone who came to pay their respects, no matter what, would be allowed to return alive. This was a kind of etiquette. However, this time, High Heaven Pavilion was going a bit too far. They were determined to make Jiang Chen and the others unable to return. It's not to kill you, the youth jokingly said. I just want to tell you that if you don't have the strength, you should go back, lest you lose your life here. Is that so? Jiang Chen whispered, taking a step forward and writing his name on the life and death contract. He asked, then if we accidentally kill someone from High Heaven Pavilion, High Heaven Pavilion won't pursue the matter. Of course. The young man nodded and said, this time, the names of the people from High Heaven Pavilion who blocked your visit are all written on the life and death contract. That's good. Jiang Chen spoke softly, staring at Zhou Tianzhong as he teased. Don't tell me you don't dare. What a joke. Zhou Tianzhong raised his eyebrows and said, Why wouldn't I dare? With that, he took a step forward and wrote his name on the life and death contract. Then, Black Mask wrote his name on the life and death contract without saying anything else. This time, I'm afraid Nine Heavens Sect and High Heaven Pavilion will become enemies. Silly girl or Jiu Tianzhong, no matter who dies, this matter will blow up. Many people were moved. After all, they all knew of Jiang Chun and Jiu Tianzhong's background. One had the support of Luo Shu and the others, as well as Red Coat. The other was the Nine Heavens Sect's holy son. If anything happened to either of them, the forces behind them would definitely not let the matter rest. Although it was a life and death contract, it was still just a piece of paper. When they really couldn't take it anymore, what was a life and death contract? They would just tear it apart. The first gate is naturally this mountain gate. Do as you please. The young man teased as he pointed at the two gods guarding the gate and said, your opponents will be these two. Life and death are unpredictable. Please. At this moment, Jiu Tianzhong took a step forward. Layers of clouds seemed to be rolling around his body. He was planning to fight two eminent gods by himself. How about one each? Black Mask said, since these two were arranged here, they must be strong. No matter, this is the first battle. It's time to show our strength, Jiu Tianzhong said in a deep voice. At this moment, everyone was retreating, leaving a very wide space. Then, the two gods took a step forward and charged toward Jiu Tianzhong without saying a word. One of them shook the long spear in his hand, and the spear bloomed. Fragments of Dharma laws were shot out from the spear like fragments. The other person formed a seal with both hands, and chains made of divine energy appeared out of thin air. Like dragon bones, they wrapped around Jiu Tianzhong's body in an instant. One attacking, the other controlling. Seems like Lingxiao Pavilion is well prepared this time. Jiu Tianzhong will be difficult. However, just when everyone thought Jiu Tianzhong was going to lose, the clouds around him suddenly exploded. Then, his big hand swept out like a crescent blade. The crescent blade split into two, then four, and cut the chains in all directions. Then, Jiu Tianzhong's figure rushed out like a white cloud. In an instant, he was in front of the person who was forming the seal. I've been waiting for you for a long time. The person laughed mockingly. A barrier appeared beside him, and layers of imprisonment energy burst out like an endless cage, imprisoning Jiu Tianzhong. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression changed drastically. He stared at the imprisoned Jiu Tianzhong and thought to himself, this is bad. What are you looking at? Suddenly, a loud shout came from the head of the god holding the long spear. Then, Jiu Tianzhong, who was inside the barrier, exploded and turned into clouds. It was actually an illusion. Jiu Tianzhong clenched his fists and fell from the sky, hitting the head of the god holding the long spear. Boom! Along with a few explosions, the god's body shook, and blood spurted out of his 7 orifices. The top of his head was shattered, and even his divine soul was severely injured. At the same time, his soul was like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. I admit, the god was terrified. After being severely injured by Jiu Tianzhong, he was about to admit defeat. However, he didn't expect Jiu Tianzhong's eyes to shoot out 2 beams of cold light, which directly shattered his divine soul and soul. One person dead. Sorry, I used too much force. Jiu Tianzhong looked at the group of people from Lingxiao Pavilion and said mockingly, is there any problem with the life and death contract? Boom! Just as he finished speaking, the 9 heavens layer that was speaking suddenly exploded and turned into a cloud of mist. Then, everyone saw a flash of lightning, and a palm covered in layers of white fog passed through the back of the god holding the hand seal. His heart was stabbed out, and then his head fell to the ground. It was cut into pieces by a cold light, and he died. I say, what's wrong with you people from Lingxiao Pavilion? Are you not focused at all when you're fighting? At this moment, Jiu Tianzhong appeared behind Jiang Chun, and even Jiang Chun was shocked. This movement skill is strange. Jiang Chun was shocked. He didn't even notice when Jiu Tianzhong appeared behind him. Moreover, during the previous battle, Jiang Chen couldn't tell which one was Zhou Tianzhong's real body. Phantom destruction, someone in the crowd exclaimed. This was the top Dao skill of the Zhoutian court. Chapter 905. Phantom Dark Extinction was the top Dao skill of the Nine Skies Imperial Court. Is Nine Heavens sect really related to the Nine Skies Imperial Court? Phantom Dark Extinction. After so many generations, we finally see it again. Everyone was moved. This Dao skill was said to be of the highest level. It was said that it incorporated the law of space. So we passed the first gate, right? At this moment, Zhou Tianzhong looked at the group from High Heaven Pavilion and narrowed his eyes, as if trying to hide the killing intent in his eyes. Today, High Heaven Pavilion was determined to kill them. So, Zhou Tianzhong naturally wouldn't be polite. First, he killed 2 people to show his sincerity. Good move, Nine Heavens Sect's holy son. The young man from High Heaven Pavilion's face was a little ugly. This was undoubtedly a slap to High Heaven Pavilion's face. But then again, they were here to visit. The only difference was between fighting and being beaten. If the first gate is Her Eminence, then what is the second gate? Is he a lord now? Jiang Chen said in a low voice. The Cloud Pavilion said in person that we shouldn't bully the weak. Of course not. The young man whispered and coldly glanced at Jiang Chen and the others. Come in. Then everyone entered the gate. After walking for about 100 meters, they arrived in front of a large arch door. On both sides of the arch door, there were 2 lifelike Qilin statues, shining brightly. At the top of the arch door, 2 words were written, High Heaven. Everyone realized that the first gate was only the outer gate. Only by entering this arch door could they be considered to have truly entered High Heaven Pavilion. Through the arch door, everyone could see the scenery inside High Heaven Pavilion. Beautiful mountains and rivers, lush greenery, and Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi floated in the air like auspicious auspices. There were also spiritual birds flying in the air and dragon-like creatures lying dormant on the ground. This is only the outer gate of High Heaven Pavilion. The young man said proudly, the inner gate of High Heaven Pavilion is the real High Heaven Pavilion. What? This is the outer gate? If the outer gate is like this, then the inner gate. Are there hidden dragons and crouching tigers? Everyone was moved. High Heaven Pavilion was indeed worthy of being a top sect. It was glorious for a time, unifying the 9 heavens realm. However, there were also some who remained calm, as if they had long guessed that High Heaven Pavilion would have such a background. However, many people didn't come to High Heaven Pavilion to enjoy the scenery. They had come to take a look at how many top masters High Heaven Pavilion currently had. That was what they were most concerned about. One had to know that there was only one thing that affected the strength of a sect, and that was the number of top-notch powerhouses. Even if it was a dilapidated temple or an abandoned training ground, as long as there was a top-notch expert guarding it, then it was a top-notch sect. I hope I can take this opportunity to see the top masters of High Heaven Pavilion. Could it really be, as the rumors say, that there is an ancient divine king in High Heaven Pavilion? Just as everyone was guessing, the Qilin statues on both sides of the arch doors suddenly shook. Then, the mud on the statues fell off, and the 2 real Qilins slowly stood up with a roar. A real Kirin? The bloodline is very pure. Really? At this moment, cries of surprise rang out one after another. Even Jiang Chen was slightly surprised. Nowadays, there weren't many divine beasts in the world, and those that could be seen basically had impure bloodlines. Those divine beasts could only be called pseudo-divine beasts. But the 2 Kirins in front of him had very pure bloodlines, and were genuine divine beasts. 1 ice and 1 fire, 2 divine beast Kirins, this is the second door. The young man joked, now if you want to leave, it's not too late. Insignificant evil beasts. Zhou Tianzhong contemptuously said, don't think I can't see the origin of these 2 Kirins. Although their bloodlines are pure, they are not pure. In the end, they are not real divine beasts. Hearing this, Jiang Chen secretly nodded. These two Kirins seemed to have pure bloodlines, but in fact, they were not. A real Kirin had no attributes, but these two Kirins had ice and fire attributes. Based on this point, Jiang Chun could be sure that these two Kirins were not pure-blooded divine beasts. However, compared to the divine beasts on the market, these two were not bad, and they were just a little bit away from becoming real divine beasts. Ignorant mortals! How dare you offend the dignity of the divine beast clan? Ants! The two Kirins spoke in human language, and ice and fire rose from their bodies. The heat wave and the cold wind mixed together, like a yin-yang tai chi domain. That? Can you give these two Kirins to me later? Jiang Chen knew that this time, it was most likely Jiu Tianzhong who had made a move. This was because the cultivation of these two Kirins was not high, and they were only upper god. However, Jiu Tianzhong's strength should not be a problem. What do you mean? Jiu Tianzhong asked with a confused face. I mean, after we kill these two Kylins, give their corpses to me, and I'll take them back to make up for it. Jiang Chun said to her through holy awareness. He didn't dare say it out loud because he was afraid he would piss off the Tower Cloud. After all, killing divine beasts and taking them back to cook. This was indeed a slap in the face. I don't think we can kill them, Jiu Tianzhong frowned. One look, and I can tell that they are High Heaven Pavilion's divine beasts, and their status in the pavilion should not be low. High Heaven Pavilion will not let them die. Pooh! Pooh! However, just as Jiu Tianzhong finished speaking, two muffled sounds suddenly rang out. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, the two Kirins slowly fell to the ground, their vitality completely gone. Looking carefully, between the eyebrows of the two Kirins, there was a bloody hole the size of a thumb, and there was a pitch-black light coming out of it. Killed in one blow. Oh, how dare you? You dare to assassinate High Heaven Pavilion's divine beasts? At this moment, the group of people from High Heaven Pavilion exploded. One had to know that although the bloodline of these two Kirins was a bit impure, if they were properly nurtured, they might really become divine beasts. But now, in the blink of an eye, these two Kirins were dead. We are here to visit the mountain. Me attacking is not too much, right? At this moment, Blackface appeared beside the two Kirin corpses, raised his eyebrows, and said, I am an assassin. Do you want me to fight these two beasts fair and square? We haven't even said start yet. Several people angrily rebuked, their faces red with anger. But you didn't say start. Blackface said, All right, let's not waste time, go to the third gate. This doesn't look like someone from Nine Heavens sect, does he? At this moment, a black-haired old man flew out from the depths of High Heaven Pavilion and stood in the air, staring at Blackface with bright eyes. I am from Nine Heavens sect. Blackface's face was originally black, and when he lied, there was no trace of redness. He is a consecrated of Nine Heavens sect, and usually does not walk around the world. Jiu Tianzhong said, his expression slightly serious as he stared at the black-haired old man in the air. Then, he sent a message to Jiang Chun and Blackface. Be careful. Half-step Divine King. Chapter 906. High Heaven Pavilion could accept the death of two supreme gods. After all, they had a deep foundation. However, the death of two Qilins that could have turned into real divine beasts, how could High Heaven Pavilion sit still? Look, even half-step divine kings were startled. The killing intent is quite strong. Jiang Chen calmly looked at the black-haired old man and said, Senior, what is the meaning of this killing intent? A few juniors. Don't be too presumptuous. The black-haired old man shouted angrily, his heart bleeding. Those were Qilins that High Heaven Pavilion had raised for several generations. They were about to turn into real divine beasts, but they were killed in one blow. What are you doing? Suddenly, the black-haired old man's face fell because he saw Jiang Chen walk to the two Qilins' corpses. Then, Jiang Chen waved his hand and put the corpses into his spatial ring. Isn't it written clearly in the life and death contract? Everything on the side of the deceased will belong to the winner. Jiang Chen joked, I saw it clearly when I signed. There's such a thing? Jiu Tianzhong said seriously. He didn't look carefully. Now that he thought about it, High Heaven Pavilion was too ruthless. Not only did they want to kill Jiangchun, but they also wanted to take everything from them. Inheritances, cultivation methods, divine skills, Tao skills. Very good. Nine Heaven Sect. Very good. The black-haired old man's face was as black as his hair. He glared at Jiangchun and said coldly, "Go to the third gate. Look, this is the style of a great sect. Divine beasts killed and their corpses taken. Look at how magnanimous they are." Jiangchun laughed. Pooh! When the black-haired old man heard this, his chest heaved, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What is magnanimous? If it weren't for so many people watching, this old man would have killed you. What cultivation level will the opponent of the third gate be? Zhou Tianzhong pondered over this question on the way. The two Qilins of the second gate were at the upper god realm. In that case, the opponent at the third gate would at least be at the level of a chief god, right? Only Blackface would be able to deal with a chief god. Moreover, this time, High Heaven Pavilion was prepared. If they really sent out a master god to fight, he would definitely not be weak. In fact, it was highly likely that he was a higher chief god or even a pinnacle-level chief god. Don't worry. Jiangchun looked relaxed as he asked, "Did we say that only the three of us came to visit the mountain? This? I don't think I've heard of it before." Zhou Tianzhong said softly. "Then it's fine." Jiangchun had a mocking look on his face as he said, "If they dare to send out a peak chief god, then Lingxiao Pavilion will suffer great losses." "You are prepared?" Zhou Tianzhong asked. "You'll know soon enough," Jiangchun said softly. A dozen breaths later, everyone passed through the arched door and followed a perfectly straight path to arrive before a large square door. Above the entrance, the words High Heaven Pavilion were also written. However, the words intersect were written at the back. Clearly, behind these four doors was High Heaven Pavilion's intersect. Looking around, there were quite a number of High Heaven Pavilion disciples behind the four doors. The lowest cultivation was a higher mystic god. Moreover, those disciples all had extremely strong auras. The auras emitted by several higher mystic gods were not weaker than Her Eminence's. Are these High Heaven Pavilion's intersect disciples? Each and every one of them is very strong. Any one of them can be considered a prodigy in the outside world. Everyone was moved. This High Heaven Pavilion had been in seclusion for several eras, but their foundation was still there. If these intersect disciples all grew up, they would definitely be a great help to High Heaven Pavilion in the future. "Senior, we've arrived at the third door. Where's your gatekeeper?" At this moment, Zhou Tianzhong looked at the black-haired old man. "Am I not here?" The black-haired old man descended from the sky and slowly walked to the third door under everyone's astonished faces. At this moment, many people cursed in their hearts. High Heaven Pavilion was really shameless. It was fine that the first two doors were Her Eminence's. But now, seeing that the first two doors had fallen, they directly sent a half-step God King for the third door. "Didn't we agree not to bully the weak?" Zhou Tianzhong said in a low voice, his fists clenched, and his face was even more ferocious. At first, he thought that no matter how overboard High Heaven Pavilion was, they would at most send a peak chief god. But no one expected that the gatekeeper of the third door would be a half-step God King. Do you have any shame?" Blackface was also furious. If it were an upper chief god, Blackface could fight. Even against a peak chief god, as long as Blackface's assassination skills were good enough, he might have a chance of winning. But against a half-step God King, how could he fight? High Heaven Pavilion used to be the overlord of the ninth heaven divine realm. Why is their behavior now so low? That's right. Isn't this too much nonsense? Some people couldn't stand it anymore and whispered softly. In this era, it's an era where strength speaks. High Heaven Pavilion has strength, and you don't accept it? The black-haired old man had a haughty look on his face as he raised his chin and said, "Today, since they are here to visit, it's also the time for High Heaven Pavilion to come into being." "I see. High Heaven Pavilion has a good plan, using Silly Girl and the rest to visit to come into being in front of so many top sects. This is to intimidate the world. to intimidate those top sects. This is to establish dominance. At this moment, Zhou Tianzhong's expression was extremely ugly. He stood where he was, neither advancing nor retreating. Blackface was even more direct as he shook his head and said, "Go back. I can't beat a half-step god king." Zhou Tian blinked his big eyes and said timidly, "Master, that old man looks so scary." Jiang Chun smiled faintly when he heard that. He took a step forward and cupped his fist at the black-haired old man, saying, "I'm sorry." The moment those words came out, everyone was stunned and in a mess. Zhou Tianzhong even widened his eyes and rebuked angrily, "What's wrong with you? Even if you can't beat him, you don't have to apologize, right? Where's your backbone?" No, I'm apologizing in advance." Jiang Chun turned back and said with a smile, "I'm afraid that I'll cripple him, so I'm sorry in advance. After all, I'm a very reasonable person. Boy, do you want to die? A mere lower true god? What do you want to do?" The black-haired old man exploded in anger. He had cultivated for 10,000 years and had never seen such an arrogant lower true god. "I don't know if he wants to die, but I'm sure that you want to die." At this moment, a figure tore through the void. His purple gold hair danced in the wind, and his aura was domineering. He slowly landed and stood in front of Jiang Chun. He patted Jiang Chun's shoulder and said, "Little junior brother, I'm here to support you." Chapter 907. This person was tall and sturdy. His purple gold hair was covered with divine light, as if the sun and moon were hanging on his hair. Dense mist rose from within his eyes. It was like an expanse of chaos that hid an unknown universe within. He was expressionless, very calm and natural, but when he looked at Jiang Chun, his eyes were filled with curiosity. "Who are you?" Jiang Chun asked abruptly when the crowd assumed that this was a strong man invited by Jiang Chun to visit the mountain. His mind was filled with doubts. This time, the group of people was in chaos. "He called you junior brother, and you don't know who he is? Messing around?" The man was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said, "I forgot to introduce myself." After that, the man did not say it in front of everyone, but secretly transmitted his voice. "I'm your senior brother, known as Tong Tian." Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. One had to know that this time, Jiang Chun came to visit High Heaven Pavilion, fully prepared. Not only did he let win every bet borrow Black Mask, but he also secretly informed Luo Shu and the others. He thought that this time, Luo Shu and the others would come, or even Old Chai would come personally. Unexpectedly, Luo Shu and Old Chai did not come, but a senior brother that he had never seen before came. Dragon, Tiger, Snake, Bear, Ghost, the 5 big generation disciples of Sky Reaching School. Above them, there is a senior brother named Tong Tian. Jiang Chun remembered, looked at the man in a daze, and transmitted his voice. "Senior brother, didn't you enter the East Sea Forbidden Area? You're back? It's all thanks to Master, otherwise I might not have been able to come out." Tong Tian said with a worried face, "Master is injured, and now he has returned to Sky Reaching School to heal. Today's matter, let me handle it." Then, the two of them ended their conversation. Tong Tian turned around, looked at the black-haired old man at the third gate, and asked, "You're from the older generation. Are you sure you want to be the guardian of the third gate? This is High Heaven Pavilion's matter. What does it have to do with you?" The black-haired old man said in a deep voice, his face gloomy, and his palms full of sweat. Others might not be able to see Tong Tian's cultivation, but he could. It was all because the two of them were both half-step divine kings. However, there was a special aura on Tong Tian's body that concealed his cultivation. In fact, it even gave off an illusory feeling. The black-haired elder knew very well that such a person was most likely about to fuse with the great Tao, about to become a divine king. As for him, he was still half a step away from becoming a god king. "If that's the case, then I'm also here to visit the mountain." Tong Tian said, "I heard that we have to sign a life and death contract, right? Give it to me, and I'll sign it." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was moved. The one with the highest cultivation here, was the black-haired old man. The others could not see through Tong Tian's cultivation at all. Even Jiang Chen was puzzled. He reminded, eldest senior brother, this old man is a half-step divine king. Little junior brother, this world is like a turbid sea. The water is very deep and also very muddy. I can't see clearly, Heavenspan said. Perhaps to you all, being able to see a half-step divine king is already very rare. But to me, this kind of trash, I've killed quite a few. This Lululu? Jiang Chen was confused. This was his eldest senior brother? Wasn't he too formidable? No need. We'll stop here. The black-haired old man was not confident in his heart. How could he still dare to sign a life and death contract? If he really signed a life and death contract, if he lost and died, he would really lose everything. Cultivation was not easy. He had cultivated the half-step divine king with great difficulty. The golden age was about to arrive. He was still waiting to achieve the position of divine king in the golden age. Therefore, this black-haired old man did not wish for any accidents to happen. Furthermore, it was not just this black-haired old man who had such thoughts. Right now, all the half-step divine kings in this world basically had the same thoughts. They were all waiting for the golden age to arrive, to break the shackles and become divine kings in one fell swoop. Since you won't sign it, then let's begin, Tong Tian said softly, when his voice landed, only to see the phantom of a true dragon appear behind him. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon's roar, the phantom soared into the sky, almost materializing. At the same time, an extremely terrifying pressure erupted. The surrounding void was cracking, and even the runes of the great Tao were revealed. They flickered indeterminately, as if they were about to be shattered by Tong Tian's aura. A true expert. Terrifying. He's even stronger than that half-step divine king from the Divine Emperor clan. Many people were shocked, and even more puzzled. Where did Jiang Chen's senior brothers and senior sisters come from? Each and every one of them was extremely formidable. Even Zhou Qianzhong was dumbfounded. He did not expect that Jiang Chen's backup was actually a half-step divine king with extremely formidable combat power. Of course, Jiang Chen himself did not expect that the one who came this time was actually the eldest disciple of Tong Tian School. How can we still fight this? At this moment, the black-haired old man's expression was extremely ugly. He stood in the same place and did not move an inch, only because, based on Tong Tian's aura, the black-haired old man knew that he was not Tong Tian's opponent. Fortunately, he did not sign a life and death contract. Otherwise, if they fought, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. However, the current him did not dare to make a move even more. How to fight this? He lost in terms of aura. If they fought, wouldn't it be looking for abuse? Hey, are you still fighting or not? Tong Tian frowned. Looking at the black-haired old man who was in a daze, he said, if you're not fighting, then get out of the way. My junior brother still wants to continue worshipping the mountain. Fellow Taoist, it was all a joke earlier. The black-haired old man was quick-witted, a smile appearing on his face, and he said, how can my firmament pavilion bully the weak? In fact, this third door's guardian is not me. Just now was just a joke. As he spoke, he waved at a young man inside the third door and said, you will be the guardian of the third door. The moment these words came out, everyone cursed in their hearts. What's wrong? Admitted defeat? Even Tong Tian was speechless. To think that he ran all the way here. He did not expect that before he even made a move, the other party admitted defeat. However, Tong Tian did not want to pursue the matter. Since the other party had retreated, then he would not make a move. I have heard of the name Silly Girl. I heard that she caused a storm in the Void God realm. Today, my firmament pavilion is very curious and wants to see her strength. The black-haired old man's skin was extremely thick. He did not mention the previous matter at all. Instead, he changed the topic to Jiang Chen. I heard that Silly Girl is known as the only true god, the strongest true god, and is invincible under the venerable god. The black-haired old man said, the disciple I've chosen now happens to be a profound god. I wonder if silly girl dares to come out and fight? Old face, look at what you're saying. What's there to be afraid of? Jiang Chun did not give the other party any face and directly called him old face. At the same time, Jiang Chun walked out, looked at the black-haired old man with a smile that was not a smile, and joked, "Have you asked your disciple's permission? Does he want to fight with me?" Chapter 908. Jiang Chen's face was indifferent, and the corners of his mouth were slightly upturned, giving people a feeling of evil charm and confidence. His eyes blinked slightly, and his hair fluttered in the wind. He was like a willow, swaying in the void. This feeling was very special, as if he was integrated with the great way, unfathomable. At this moment, the black-haired old man raised his eyebrows and said contemptuously, "After all, you are just a lower true god. Why would this disciple of High Heaven Pavilion not dare to fight with you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the young man he had chosen walked out and came to the third door. Looking at Jiang Chun, he cupped his hands and said, "Please enlighten me." "Oh, really?" Jiang Chun was a little surprised, but he didn't say anything. He took a step forward and rushed out like a phantom. His physical body was extremely strong, and the power and speed he burst out were far beyond that of ordinary people. Even Xian Shun was inferior to him. However, before Jiang Chun rushed to the young man, he heard the young man's secret voice transmission. "Brother, I don't want to fight with you. I can't beat you. Please show mercy." Jiang Chun was stunned. Since you don't want to fight, why do you still want to fight? However, after thinking about it carefully, the young man was a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. Now that the black-haired old man had spoken, how could he, as a disciple, not fight? Naive fellow cultivator, I have seen your strength at the Haotian conference. I am no match for you. The young man moved sideways and didn't fight with Jiang Chun. He kept dodging, and at the same time, secretly communicated with Jiang Chun. To be precise, he was begging for mercy. As a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion, it's not easy for me. I admit defeat, but can you give me face and let me lose with dignity? I'm begging you. I have no enmity with you, please. Otherwise, I won't be able to survive in High Heaven Pavilion in the future." Hearing these words, Jiang Chun smiled and thought that this young man was quite interesting. At least he was honest. Since the young man was begging for mercy, Jiang Chun wouldn't embarrass him. "All right, 300 rounds." Jiang Chun sent a secret vocal transmission. When the young man heard this, his expression turned solemn, but his heart was bursting with joy. As long as they fought for 300 rounds, even if he lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. Following this, Jiang Chun continued to go easy on this High Heaven Pavilion disciple and began a fierce battle. Silly girl is so strong. A lower true god is actually able to contend against a profound god from High Heaven Pavilion, and he's not at a disadvantage. As expected of the only true god, everyone gasped in surprise. Just how had Jiang Chun cultivated? How could a lower true divinity have such fighting strength? At this moment, the young man who was fighting with Jiang Chun was filled with bitterness. He knew that Jiang Chun was going easy on him, but even so, he had to use all his strength to compete with Jiang Chun. This brat, monster! The youth felt bitter and wronged. There are so many disciples in High Heaven Pavilion. Why do you have to choose me? You haven't seen Jiang Chen's performance at the Haotian Assembly. That can only be described as fierce. No, you're too strong. 270 rounds. After half an incense stick of time, the young man couldn't hold on any longer. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Even if Jiang Chun was going easy on him, he couldn't hold on any longer. "That's fine," Jiang Chun replied. After the two fought for a while, it was exactly 270 rounds. In the last move, Jiang Chun used his body to resist the opponent's palm, and at the same time, his own fist bombarded the opponent's body, suppressing the opponent. "Thank you, Taoist silly girl." The young man was defeated and looked very depressed, but in fact, he was very happy. After fighting for 270 rounds, even if he lost now, it could be considered quite decent. It's nothing, I like honest people like you. Jiang Chen sent a voice transmission. As a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion, it's not easy for you. Thank you, Taoist silly girl. The young man thanked again, came in front of the black-haired old man, and said in a low voice, "Disciple can't beat him." When the black-haired old man heard this, he also sighed heavily, patted the young man on the shoulder, and said, "It's okay, I also heard that this silly girl's combat strength is extraordinary. I'll let you fight because I want to test his strength. You can fight with him for 270 rounds. Now I have a rough idea of his combat strength. The next few doors he will suffer." When the young man heard this, he couldn't help but feel cold sweat in his heart. He wanted to tell the black-haired old man that 270 rounds were bullshit. If Jiang Chen used his full strength, he could at most hold on for 10 rounds. However, at this point he didn't need to say it. Otherwise, not only would he be slapping his own face, but he would also lose the face of High Heaven Pavilion. As for how High Heaven Pavilion would treat Jiang Chen next, whether they valued him or looked down on him, it had nothing to do with him. Anyway, he had done what he had to do. This third door is considered passed, right? Then next should be the fourth door? Tontian asked. The fourth, fifth, and sixth door, these three doors, is it to break the array? Of course, the black-haired old man said. My High Heaven Pavilion's array is famous in the world. At that time, the strongest array master came from High Heaven Pavilion. Speaking up to here, the black-haired old man directly turned and whispered, "Come, array. This thing, leave it to me?" Jiang Chen looked at Jiao Tianzhong and Black Mian with a strange expression and said, "Don't worry, it's no problem. I can only leave it to you." Jiao Tianzhong smiled bitterly. "My understanding of arrays is different. As for this Black Mian, I guess he is only good at assassination." Black Mian heard this and smiled awkwardly. Indeed. Then everyone passed through the third door and arrived in front of the fourth door of High Heaven Pavilion. It had to be said that High Heaven Pavilion's buildings were very grand and spacious. From the entrance to the main hall of High Heaven Pavilion, there were a total of 9 doors. Ordinary sects, at most, were divided into outer and inner doors. How could they have such extravagance? The fourth door's array. Before the black-haired old man could introduce it, he saw Jiang Chen step forward and ask, "As long as it can be broken, it's fine, right?" Yes." The black-haired old man was stunned, staring at Jiang Chen, thinking that this lower true god wanted to break the array. One had to know that breaking the formation not only required a high level of attainment in formations, but also a high level of cultivation. Otherwise, where would you get the strength to break the array? However, just as the black-haired old man said yes, he saw Jiang Chen's hands forming a seal, and array patterns appeared one after another. Then, the array patterns bloomed like thousands of flowers, sprinkling on the fourth door's array. The flower-like array patterns burned like a star, about to start a prairie fire. In just a dozen breaths, the fourth door's array was burned clean, and not even a trace of the array pattern was left. This is the array that High Heaven Pavilion is so proud of? Jiang Chen joked. Hurry up, go to the fifth door. Chapter 909. Array Formation? Jiang Chen sneered in his heart. With his proficiency in all professions, what was a mere array formation to him? In this world, those array formation masters on the surface, even the peak chief god who specialized in array formations, were completely inferior to him in terms of array formation attainments. One had to know that when Jiang Chen was the god king, he had done many evil things. Things like borrowing array formation books or forcefully comprehending array formations. Jiang Chen was simply a habitual offender. Now, these array formations of Firmament Pavilion were simply too easy for Jiang Chen. To the fifth gate. The black-haired old man's face was pitch black, and his eyes flickered with light as he sized up Jiang Chen from time to time. Jiang Chen's heart tightened, and then he laughed bitterly, secretly thinking that something was going to happen today. Fortunately, Grandmaster Heaven was here, so Jiang Chen was not afraid of anything. He was just afraid that he would provoke those old monsters. and then he did not know if Grandmaster Heaven would be able to withstand it. However, even if Grandmaster Heaven could not withstand it, there was still Zhou Tianzhong. Jiang Chun did not believe that Zhou Tianzhong did not have a backup plan. As the emperor of the Zhoutian court, since he dared to come visit, he must be prepared. At the very least, there was no problem staying alive. Soon, everyone arrived in front of the fifth gate. The moment they arrived, they felt that the atmosphere here was not quite right, as if the sky was about to collapse. Looking up, the sky above the fifth gate was actually red, and there was even a blood moon hanging high in the sky. There were pools of blood on the ground, as if there had been a great battle here before, and living beings had died tragically here. Great killing array! Although this old man does not understand array formations, I can see that this fifth gate's array focuses on killing. The blood moon appears, the blood on the ground. This is the blood path array under the moon. Someone revealed the origin of this array, and everyone's expressions changed greatly, especially Zhou Tianzhong and Blackface, whose expressions were even uglier. From Pavilion, you set up this array to kill us? Zhou Tianzhong said directly, his eyes incomparably gloomy, as if they could drip stagnant water. Black Mask also snorted coldly, and his figure began to fade away. It was obvious that he was ready for battle. Everyone, what you're saying is unreasonable, the black-haired old man said. Regardless of whether it's a killing formation or a defensive formation, they're all formations. We didn't say whether we wanted them to break the defensive formation or the killing formation or any other formation. Hearing those words, many people were speechless. Indeed, the killing array was also a type of array formation, and they had no reason to refute it. This formation, where did you get it from? Jiang Chun had an odd expression as he asked. If I recall correctly, this array formation was created by the heavenly stellar god king. In my high heaven pavilion, what kind of spirit array does it not have? The black-haired elder said contemptuously, Heavenly stellar divine king can be considered one of the best among the past divine kings. He is proficient in all professions, especially the path of array formations. He can be said to be at the pinnacle. Don't say that. Jiang Chun blushed. It was embarrassing to be praised like that. Of course, that was on the premise that the black-haired old man did not know Jiang Chun's identity. If he knew that Jiang Chun was the reincarnation of Heavenly Stellar Divine King, his face would probably turn green. This formation, I remember it should be broken like this. Jiang Chun said softly, following which he pointed his finger. A cold light accompanied the formation runes and landed 3 feet away from the blood moon in the sky. Boom! Instantly, a loud explosion sounded. 3 feet away from the blood moon, a bright sun suddenly appeared. The intense divine light and light overshadowed the blood moon's radiance. Following that, Jiang Chun pointed his finger again, and it landed on the blood stains on the ground. In a few breaths' time, a wisp of blood stains dissipated. Following that, the blood moon in the sky shattered. The entire formation turned into runes that filled the sky and dissipated with the wind. It was broken just like that? It can't be. That's the formation created by the Heavenly Stellar Divine King. It's said that not many people in this world can break it. At this moment, everyone exclaimed and looked at Jiang Chun in shock. They never thought that a lower true god would be able to break Heavenly Stellar Divine King's formation with just a raise of his hand. It's true. Suddenly, the black-haired old man stared at Jiang Chun. His eyes flashed, and when he opened them, runes of the great Tao seemed to be floating. After a few breaths' time, he suddenly laughed and saluted Jiang Chun. He said loudly, "Should I call you silly now? Or should I call you Heavenly Stellar Divine King?" What? This old man? What did he say? For a moment, everyone's expression froze as they stared at the black-haired old man. Heh! Jiang Chun chuckled and said, "You used my tactical formation to test me. It looks like you've been aware of my existence since the moment I entered the Tower of Cloud." Indeed, the black-haired old man said softly, "I didn't expect it to be you." Yes, so what? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. Since his identity was already exposed, there was no need to hide it. Moreover, before coming here, Jiang Chun had a premonition that his identity was about to be exposed. After all living beings in this world were not fools. Heavenly Stellar? Silly is Heavenly Stellar. At this moment, Jiang Chun could feel that amidst the exclamations, several killing intents landed on him. Looking back, Jiang Chun smiled at those people and said, "How are the 36 overgods? I'd like to see them. Heavenly Stellar, today will be the day you die. You didn't know how to lie low and actually exposed your identity. Now no one in this world can save you." Many of the people present were from the 36 Peak Lords. When they heard the news, they immediately sent the news back to their forces. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before those overgods who besieged Jiang Chun back then arrived. "Looks like there's no need to continue the mountain worship today," Jiang Chun said softly and pointed at the black-haired old man. "Thank you, Ling Shao Pavilion." "What do you mean?" The black-haired old man was puzzled. "Ever since I ascended to the divine world of 9 heavens, I've been using a fake name. I'm afraid my identity will be exposed. But now I've thought it through. So what if it's exposed? Even if the sky falls, I can hold it up. I should be myself." At this point, Jiang Chun looked at Tong Tian and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, eldest senior brother. I should have told you my identity earlier." "Do you think the sect leader doesn't know your identity?" Tong Tian said snappily. "The sect leader has sharp eyes." You all know about it?" Jiang Chun asked in surprise. "For now, only the sect leader and I know. But now, Luo Shu and the rest should know too." Tong Tian said and pointed at the sky above. "And they should be here soon." At this point, Tong Tian looked at Jiang Chun seriously and asked, "Have you seen 100 flowers bloom?" Chapter 9:10. Jiang Chun did not understand what Tong Tian meant. 100 flowers blooming? Inform the ancestor that Tian Chen's reincarnation has been found. Quick, report it. At the same time, many people had already begun to act. They used secret techniques or directly took out decrees to pass the news back to their respective factions. At this moment, the black-haired old man looked at Zhou Tianzhong and Jiang Chun with a smile and joked, "Do you still want to continue this visit?" "Why not?" Jiang Chun said. "Since we're already here, we should have finished the 9 gates of High Heaven Pavilion, right?" "Ha! You can't even protect yourself? And you still want to visit?" The black-haired old man said contemptuously, "I'm afraid that it won't be long before the line of people coming to kill you stretches from High Heaven Pavilion to the 9 gates. Maybe not many people will come." Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and said, "Sometimes things are not as simple as you think." After saying that, Jiang Chun waved his hand and said, "Lead the way to the 6th gate." "Huh?" The black-haired old man chuckled. To be honest, High Heaven Pavilion did not care about Jiang Chun's visit at all. It was because High Heaven Pavilion was very strong and had a deep foundation. They were sure that Jiang Chun and the others would not be able to reach the 9th gate. However, what happened next made the black-haired old man's face very ugly. When Jiang Chun arrived at the 6th gate, he raised his hand without saying anything. A formation pattern sprinkled down. Like a sharp blade, it cracked the formation of the 6th gate directly. After that, Jiang Chun did not wait for the black-haired old man to speak and directly walked towards the 7th gate. "The last 3 gates are surpassing," the black-haired old man joked. "The surpassing means that you can fight those of a higher level." "Fight those of a higher level?" "Sure," Jiang Chun joked. "I'm just a lower-level true god. If I fight those of a higher level, then I'm a lower-level divine god." At this point, Jiang Chun's face was full of smiles. "Why don't you call out all the lower heavenly gods in your High Heaven Pavilion? I'll deal with them all together." The 7th gate is 1 level higher. The 8th gate is 2 levels higher. The 9th gate is 3 levels higher. The black-haired old man whispered, a crafty look in his eyes. In the end, High Heaven Pavilion didn't care about the first few doors. Their last resort was still the last 3 gates. How many people in this world could surpass 3 levels in battle? However, To Jiangchun, it was only 3 levels. What did it matter? Surpassing 1 level is a lesser heavenly deity. Crossing 2 levels is the lower profound god. Crossing 3 levels is the lower honored god. Jiangchun frowned. Jiangchun was well aware of his own battle prowess. He was nearly invincible under the realm of the eminent god. However, it was true that Jiangchun had yet to fight her eminence. However, from the looks of it, the last 3 gates would be up to him. After all, if Zhou Tianzhong were to make a move with his cultivation level, wouldn't he be able to fight a godly king who was 3 levels above him? Would he be able to win? All right, old man. You should know better. There's no need to fight the 7th and 8th gates. Let's go straight to the 9th gate. I'll surpass 3 levels and defeat the lower honored god. Jiangchun said straightforwardly. The black-haired old man didn't have any objections. He also knew that Jiangchun was very strong. Surpassing 2 levels wasn't a problem at all. However, the black-haired old man was still very confident that Jiangchun wouldn't be a match for a lower honored god. Soon, the group moved forward and arrived at the 9th gate. Looking around, there was a small palace behind the 9th gate. It towered above the clouds and was shrouded in divine light. Several large ancient characters that seemed to be carved with great Tao runes floated in the air. That was High Heaven Pavilion's main hall. High Heaven Hall. Hurry up, there's not enough time, Jiangchun said solemnly. Jiangchun knew that once his identity was exposed, the people who wanted to kill him would definitely rush over. As for the 36 overgods, more than half of them would come. What Jiangchun needed to do now wasn't to worry about those people coming to kill him, but to settle the matter of visiting the mountain first. After all, doing things in an orderly manner was the way of the king. These are all lower honored gods. You can pick any one of them. The black-haired old man said jokingly, pointing at the dozen or so disciples in front of the 9th gate. These disciples were all carefully selected by him. Each one of them had extremely formidable battle prowess. Hearing this, Jiangchun was too lazy to think too much. He casually pointed at one of them and said, "I choose you. Please enlighten me." The young man took a step forward. His etiquette was quite appropriate. However, just as he finished speaking, everyone saw a green lamp appear above Jiangchun's head. The lamp's flame was serene, and then a terrifying sword Qi cut through the void. Qi. The sword Qi was like the cold light of the 9 heavens. Wherever it passed, it seemed like everything would be cut into pieces. Puff! With a muffled sound, before anyone could react, the Lingxiao Pavilion disciple was cut in half at the waist by Jiangchun. "Is this over?" Jiangchun asked. Since his identity had been exposed, there was no need to hide his Tao soul. One move, 10,000 transformations heaven slash, was quick and clean, and saved him a lot of trouble. At this moment, the black-haired old man's face was extremely ugly, as gloomy as stagnant water. He didn't expect Jiangchun to have such a move. At the same time, the surrounding people looked serious, and their eyes were filled with horror. I remember that Tianqin's Tao Soul was the 10,000 transformations heavenly lamp, but he didn't light up the lamp wick. His lamp wick lit up. The place was in an uproar. Almost everyone knew that Jiangqin's Tao Soul was destroyed back then. That was because to light up the 10,000 transformations heavenly lamp, a master at the overgod level had to be willing to use everything he had as a guide to light up the 10,000 transformations heavenly lamp. At that time, Jiangchun had become a supreme god king before his Tao Soul was lit up. His strength could be said to be extremely powerful. Now, with the 10,000 transformations heavenly lamp lit up, if Jiangchun became a supreme god king, who in the world could compete with him? At that time, even if 36 peak supreme gods attacked and killed Jiangchun again, history would not repeat itself. "That's enough," Zhou Tianzhong said. He walked to Jiangchun's side and patted his shoulder, saying, "Leave the rest to me." "Okay." Jiangchun nodded. Looking at Zhou Tianzhong's calm expression, Jiangchun knew that nothing would happen to him today. There is an ancient supreme god king in Lingxiao Pavilion. He should have a disciple named Qi Teng. right? Zhou Tianzhong asked. There is such a thing. The black-haired old man nodded. Then, do you know that Shi Tong poisoned my little sister? Zhou Tianzhong asked again. I don't know. The black-haired old man shook his head. Then, he said with relief, so, the Nine Heavens sect came to visit because of this? When Zhou Tianzhong heard this, he nodded his head. Then, he shook his head and said, I'm only here to avenge my little sister. As for the real purpose, they are only here to tell you. Zhou Tianzhong paused for a moment. Then, he waved his hand, and a decree flew out from his hand. It was like a painting of mountains and rivers, unfolding in the air. Rays of divine light radiated from the divine decree, and the 4 large and resplendent characters were engraved on the divine decree. Moreover, there was even a terrifying pressure that permeated the air. Under the pressure, the void around the decree collapsed. Even the runes of the Great Tao were being destroyed. Even the order of the Great Tao and the chains were crumbling. What is this? Nine Heavens Court? At this moment, everyone was shocked. Looking at the few words on the decree, everyone knew what it meant. The rumors are true. Behind the Nine Heavens sect is the Nine Heavens Court, someone exclaimed. At this moment, Zhou Tianzhong stood proudly in front of the ninth gate. When he looked at the black-haired old man from the corner of his eyes, a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. Today, I am here to tell you that the Nine Heavens Court has come into being. As he spoke, Zhou Tianzhong's body suddenly exploded with the aura of an emperor. Waves of emperor's qi enveloped the area, and a majestic aura filled the air. I am the prince of the Nine Heavens Court. At this moment, the surroundings fell silent. No one had expected such a big thing to happen today. First, Jiang Chun and the others came to visit the Firmament Pavilion. Second, Jiang Chun's identity was exposed. The last thing that could shake the Nine Heavens divine world was that the overlord force that once dominated the Nine Heavens divine world, the Nine Heavens Court, had come into being. The world is going to change. Is it really going to come into being? It feels like this era is not only glorious, but also filled with the flames of war. Chapter 911. The Jotian court was a powerful force that had dominated the divine world of the Nine Heavens for tens of thousands of years. In that era, once the Jotian war flag appeared, everyone in the world would submit to it. However, as time passed, the top dynasty eventually declined and was replaced by another force. It was even sealed. However, no one would have thought that the Jotian court that everyone thought had completely disappeared still existed and chose to come out at this time. A decree announced the return of the Jotian court to the world. This was not only a notice to all living things in the world, but also a declaration of war. The appearance of the Jotian court. Are they going to unify the divine world of the Nine Heavens again? That dynasty, is their foundation still there? If not, I'm afraid it will be difficult to unify the divine world of the Nine Heavens in this era. Everyone was shocked, but many people were not optimistic about the Jotian court. After all, so much time had passed. How much foundation could the Jotian court have left? How many experts were there in the court now? Moreover, the Golden Age was coming, and all the hidden forces were coming out. For example, Lingxiao Pavilion was already considered to have come out. Many people thought that the current Jotian court might not even be as good as Lingxiao Pavilion. If it was in the past, once the Jotian court issued a decree, the world would have to submit, the black-haired elder said disdainfully. But now, I'm afraid it won't be possible. After saying that, he rose into the air and said loudly, Today, Lingxiao Pavilion also announces that it has come out. Although everyone knew that Lingxiao Pavilion had come out, when they heard it with their own ears, their hearts could not help but palpitate. Another top force had come out. In the end, today's visit is just a small matter. Someone joked, if not for the announcement of the two top forces, the biggest thing today would be Tian Chen's identity being exposed. It's a pity compared to the appearance of the two top forces. A mere Tian Chen is nothing. Moreover, his cultivation is too low now. Someone mocked and pointed at Jiang Chun. saying that their old ancestor was already on his way. In response, Jiang Chun was very calm. There was not a trace of emotion in his eyes, and his expression was normal. He stood there like a strong, ancient tree. Tian Chun, if you're willing to join High Heaven Pavilion, we can forget about the matter of you visiting the mountain, and High Heaven Pavilion has the power to protect you. The black-haired old man secretly transmitted his voice to Tian Chun, his eyes burning with passion. The Nine Heavens Court can't protect you. You think too much, Jiang Chun replied indifferently. Buzz. At this moment, an explosion sounded in the void. A crack appeared, and a man shrouded in darkness walked out from the void. All the light around him had been devoured, and his body was like a black hole. Beneath his feet, the Tao was trembling. Behind him, a black beam of light was vibrating. Ripples spread out and impacted the surrounding void. God, old ancestor, Tian Chun will die. We'll eliminate all future troubles. The of black of gods of God He court of black is Tian I's eyes, but gods of his God. Of his? His eyes were empty and lifeless, as if he was thinking about something. Sigh. After a dozen breaths, a faint sigh came from afar. Then, darkness descended, covering all the light in this world. A gloomy and cold aura filled the air, as if the surroundings had transformed into an eternal and dark cage. God of darkness. Darkness and darkness, twin brothers. Everyone exclaimed. These were two peak gods from the same faction. Black Temple. Any one of these two people would be able to fight against the Sovereign of Light, the Martial God, and other top-tier sovereigns. Most importantly, these two were blood brothers and came from the same faction. Now that they had joined forces, it was clear how much they valued Jiang Chun. However, the surprising thing was that the two of them only stood side by side and did not attack. It was as though they were afraid of something. Or perhaps, in their eyes, Jiang Chun was like an ant, unworthy of their attack. Back then, when you bowed down to me, I had to call you God King Tian Chun. Now, you don't deserve to be called God King, do you? Jiang Chun. Suddenly, an extremely arrogant, even provocative voice rang out from another part of the void. Then, half of the originally dark sky was covered by light. A man shrouded in holy light tore through the void with both hands and landed here. God of Light. Isn't he in seclusion? Why is he here? Many people were puzzled. Many knew that there would definitely be many gods here to kill Jiang Chun today, but the God of Light should not be here. That was because he was in seclusion to become a God King. Back then, among the 36 peak gods, only the God of Light and Martial God were most likely to become God Kings in the shortest amount of time. However, no one expected the God of Light to come out of seclusion for Jiang Chun. At this moment, the God of Light did not attack after arriving here. He was shrouded in holy light from head to toe, and his arrogance from before had disappeared. He stood quietly in the air like an outsider. Just a bunch of officials, Jiang Chun said softly. Then, he raised his head to look at the three peak gods and said, Why? Since you're here to kill me today, why aren't you attacking? We just want to see how many of your Tenshin Shinzo have escaped. The God of Light said coldly. Back then, as a god king, Jiang Chun had naturally established his own sect, Tenshin Shinzo. His disciples, as well as the divine spirit users and the moon deity, were all from Tenshin Shinzo. It was just that after Jiang Chun's death and Tenshin Shinzo's destruction, Jiang Chun's disciples were basically all dead. A few of them had disappeared, and it was unknown whether they were still alive or not. However, the God of Light and the others all knew how glorious Tenshin Shinzo had been back then. There were definitely some who had escaped. Today, since Jiang Chun's identity had been exposed, those who had escaped would definitely come to protect Jiang Chun. What they wanted to do today was not only to kill Jiang Chun, but also to kill those who had escaped from Tenshin Shinzo. Only then would they be able to eliminate all future troubles. Jiang Chun, only one of your disciples is still alive, the Dark Master God said. His voice was ice cold, and the dark domain around him was expanding unceasingly. A few of them escaped, but it's a pity that they all died in my hands. The darkness Master God's voice was cold and filled with murderous intent. When Jiang Chun heard this, his heart palpitated. The sorrow in his eyes was not concealed in the slightest. Only my eldest disciple is still alive, right? Jiang Chun sighed. However, his eldest disciple was also nowhere to be found. It's really lively today. The top forces of the past have all come out. Then, how can we be left out? Chapter 9:12. A frivolous and unruly voice came from the ninth heaven. Then the wind and clouds suddenly changed. A group of people descended from the clouds. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was wearing an old Taoist robe and a white jade crown. His temples were snow white, and he looked like an immortal. There were 5 people behind him. Each of them had an extremely powerful aura. Especially the first person behind him. He looked like a scholar. He was holding a folding fan of mountains and rivers. He looked elegant and graceful, but he gave people a fierce feeling. "Greetings, sect master." Tong Tian reacted immediately and saluted the middle-aged man. As for Jiang Chun, he was dumbfounded. He looked at the group of people in a daze. Especially when he saw Katsura Matsuda, he couldn't help but mutter, "Why are you dressed so formally today? Which force do you belong to?" The black-haired old man from High Heaven Pavilion asked. He felt an extremely powerful force from Katsura Matsuda. This force was comparable to a divine king. The black-haired old man even had a feeling that this man's strength was not weaker than a divine king. "Sky-reaching church," Katsura Matsuda said softly. He stood in the air and pointed at Jiang Chun and Tong Tian. "These 2 people are also disciples of my sky-reaching church." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people suddenly exclaimed. Many people had heard of the sky-reaching church. They knew how powerful and terrifying the sky-reaching church was in the past. During the most prosperous period of the sky-reaching church, it could be said that it really shocked everyone. Even if there were other divine kings in that era, or even existences beyond the divine king level, they didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of the sky-reaching church. In the history of the ninth heaven divine world, if there were any forces that were really invincible, then the sky-reaching church must be one of them. Someone even made a ranking. Since ancient times, the sky-reaching church was enough to be ranked in the top 3 among all the major forces. One must know that this was the historical ranking of the entire ninth heaven divine world. I didn't expect that the sky-reaching church is still alive. A cold light flashed in the black-haired old man's eyes. Then, he snorted contemptuously and said, "Unfortunately, the sky-reaching church is no longer the same as before. Sect Master, what are you doing?" The Transcending Heaven Church had always been in seclusion to avoid their enemies. So, why did they suddenly come out now? Could it be because of me? Jiang Chun thought to himself. Without waiting for Katsura Matsuda to speak, Luo Shu took a step forward and looked at the black-haired old man. His eyes were cold as he slowly opened the fan of mountains and rivers in his hand. Then, an illusion of mountains and rivers appeared beside him, and his aura shot up into the sky like a rainbow. He was like a scholar, but at this moment, he was like a god of war. He pointed at the black-haired old man and shouted, "Who do you think you are?" When these words came out, everyone was moved. Even Tong Tian was a little surprised. One should know that the black-haired old man was a half-step god king. Although Luo Shu's combat strength was strong, in his impression, he could only fight against an overgod. In fact, if he were to encounter a pinnacle lord, Luo Shu would definitely be no match for him. But now, where did Luo Shu get his confidence from? Moreover, Tong Tian was very clear about how deep the foundation of the sky-reaching school was. Right now, the strongest person in the entire sky-reaching school was Katsura Matsuda. But he was not a god king. However, there was one thing that Tong Tian knew. Back when the sky-reaching school was in trouble, Firmament Pavilion had helped out as well. Furthermore, it was a sneaky move. It was extremely sinister. The few supreme beings of the sky reaching school back then were all killed in battle. If this is all that the sky-reaching school has now, then the day of your reappearance will be the day of your destruction. The radiant master god said coldly. When everyone heard that, they understood instantly. It seemed like the radiant race had a grudge with the sky-reaching school as well. Seems like there are many grudges that will be settled today. The darkness master god said. That's right. Tian Qin's reincarnation, Tenshin Shinzo, and the sky-reaching school of the past will all be settled today. The darkness master god said softly. Clearly, the Black God Hall had a grudge with the sky-reaching school as well. Seems like the sky-reaching school really has many enemies. Firmament Pavilion, Radiant Race, Black God Hall. I'm afraid there are many more. Jiang Qin was shocked. What kind of calamity did the sky-reaching school go through back then? He's here too. Suddenly, the crowd saw a figure appear in the distant sky. He didn't come close, but he gave off a kind of supreme pressure. Upon closer inspection, this person was tall and sturdy, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He was also shirtless, just like a burly man. However, no one dared to think so, because this person was none other than the martial god. He was the only one who wasn't a titled chief god, but his strength was enough to contend with any titled chief god. There were even rumors that in the Nine Heavens divine realm, martial god's strength was so strong that only a few titled chief gods could contend with him. This guy isn't in seclusion? He didn't enter the titled deity realm back then, and he hasn't entered the titled chief god realm now. Naturally, there's no hope for him to become a supreme god. The darkness master god said disdainfully, this kind of person is strong now, but when the golden age arrives and we all ascend to become supreme gods, is destined to be a puny chief god for the rest of his life. Darkness, you can come over and try. The martial god didn't come close, as if he was afraid of something. However, in front of the darkness master god, the martial god was extremely domineering. After the martial god said that in front of so many people, he added, if you think you're no match for me, you two brothers can come at me together. The moment he said that, the whole place went into an uproar. An ordinary chief god actually dared to provoke two titled chief gods? Was this conceit and arrogance? Or confidence? This guy is still the same as always, said Jiang Qin softly. He knew martial god's character very well. At the same time, Jiang Qin also knew one thing. Martial god wasn't as simple as he seemed on the surface. Everyone thought that martial god wasn't a titled chief god, but in reality, he might be even more terrifying than a titled chief god. The wind is blowing. At that moment, strong winds started to blow, and even the clouds were swept up like waves. A man in green arrived with the wind. His gaze was sharp. When he saw Jiang Qin, he struck out with his palm right away. High Wind Chief God. Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed. He didn't resist or dodge the High Wind Chief God's attack. This was because in the instant the High Wind Chief God struck, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Qin and struck out with a punch. The punch was vast and boundless, drowning the world like a wave. Even the High Wind Chief God's palm was drowned. This person was Old Chai. No matter who he used to be, he's now a disciple of the sky-reaching church. Old Chai was no longer as frivolous as before. His expression was solemn, and his aura was rising. He stared at the High Wind Chief God and said coldly, if you want to kill him, you'll have to fight me first. No need for nonsense. Fight. Unlike the other titled chief gods, the High Wind Chief God tore through the void right away. Then, Old Chai charged out and engaged the High Wind Chief God in a fierce battle in the void. Chapter 9:13. How powerful Old Chai's strength was, Jiang Qin did not know. He only knew that when he left the Heavenspan Church, Old Chai was in close seclusion. As for Old Chai's present strength, Jiang Qin was really unclear. But thinking about it, he should be a little weaker than Katsura Matsuda, right? As for Katsura Matsuda's strength, Jiang Qin was also at a loss right now. He even could not quite figure out what Katsura Matsuda was doing here today. Could it be that he had the capital to challenge a peak chief god? Or could he contend with a god, king-level powerhouse? If not, then what was Katsuro Matsuda doing here today? And now, what Jiangchen was most worried about was not himself, but old Chai. Will the Grand Elder be okay? Jiangchen asked Tong Tian, who was next to him. When Heavenspan heard that, his expression was extremely odd. After being silent for a while, he muttered, "Who knows? The strength of the group of people from the Heavenspan Church is all very vague." Jiangchen was stunned and asked again, "Then what about the sect master strength?" "This is even more unclear." Heavenspan smiled bitterly and said, "In short, the sect master is very strong." Hearing that, Jiangchen was much more relieved. At the same time, a stretch of blazing flames appeared in the distance. Half the sky was burned into a fiery red color. When everyone saw that, they knew that the raging flames master god had arrived. In the entire nine heavens divine world, the only person who could burn the sky red was him. Tianchun, long time no see. Before the person arrived, an extremely domineering voice already reached. Several breaths later, only to see a man enveloped in blazing flames appear here. He came to the light master god's side. The two of them stood shoulder to shoulder. At the same time, his gaze locked onto Jiangchen. When he saw Jiangchen's lower true god cultivation, everyone could clearly tell that the raging flames master god heaved a sigh of relief. Obviously, he was very afraid before coming here. He was deeply afraid that Jiangchen's strength had recovered to its peak. "That's right. It's been a long time," Jiangchen replied softly as he looked at the Inferno Master God with a calm expression. "Did you miss me?" The moment those words came out, the lips of the Inferno Master God cramped up. "Miss you? Are you kidding me? I don't want to see you in this lifetime." Back then, before Jiangchen had perished, he would go look for the Inferno Master God to have a heart-to-heart with him whenever he had nothing to do. For the Inferno Master God, those were the darkest days of his life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is High Heaven Pavilion. The black-haired old man's face was also very ugly. This was because these peak lords did not show any hint of fear or respect towards Lingxiao Pavilion after arriving here. Moreover, they were even flying above High Heaven Pavilion. This was blatant contempt for High Heaven Pavilion. "Old man, who do you think you are? Do you have the right to speak here?" The light master god was very domineering as his eyes glinted. "Do you think that just because you're a half-step god king, we'll be afraid of you? That's right. Back then, even a true god king was killed by us. Let alone you." The Inferno Master God's face was full of contempt. When the Darkness Master God heard that, he laughed mockingly as well. 3,000 years ago, we were not afraid of god kings. Do you think that we would be afraid of a half-step god king like you 3 years later? When the black-haired old man heard that, his face turned even darker. After a moment of silence, he suddenly smiled. "Since that's the case, then show your cards." Buzz! Just as he said that, a loud buzz rang out. Immediately after, a god king's aura erupted from within High Heaven Pavilion. An old man appeared in a flash before the main hall of High Heaven Pavilion. "It's him." Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. This was the god king that Qi Teng had called over back then. However, according to the Water Empress, this ancient god king had been injured by her, and his injuries should not have healed by now. Then, could an injured god king who was not at his peak strength intimidate the Radiant Master God's group? The answer was obvious, no. Back then, even when Jiang Chen was at his peak, he still could not intimidate the Radiant Master God's group. An old thing with dried-up blood and injuries still dares to come out? The Inferno Master God raised his eyebrows. "Although you are a god king, you are nothing. Just this? Is this the foundation of High Heaven Pavilion? Compared to Tianchen back then, this is far from enough." The Darkness Master God said contemptuously, "If this is the extent of High Heaven Pavilion's foundation, then it's better for you to continue living in seclusion." Facing the mockery and contempt of the crowd, the black-haired old man fell silent. because now that the God King of High Heaven Pavilion had appeared, there was no need for him to speak. Everyone, can I understand that you are provoking my High Heaven Pavilion? The ancient God King's expression was indifferent as he smiled. This humble one is Yinemo. Yinemo? Never heard of him. I guess a long time ago. He was also a nameless little God King. However, the moment the ancient God King's words fell, the Inferno Master God's face changed. He stared at the ancient God King, his expression solemn as he asked, "You are really Yin Mo? What do you think?" Yin Mo raised his eyebrows and stared at the Inferno Master God. "I left my legacy at Blazing Cloud Mountain. It should have been obtained by you, right?" The Inferno Master God opened his mouth and came before Yin Mo, lowering his head. He bowed and said respectfully, "Greetings, old ancestor." At this moment, everyone was shocked. The great Inferno Master God was actually Yin Mo's disciple. And now, the Inferno Master God had actually acknowledged his ancestors in front of everyone. This poof! However, right at this moment, a muffled sound rang out. The Inferno Master God's face was covered in blood. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, bringing with them a trace of evil and coldness. A finger of his had pierced through Yin Mo's forehead. The blood on his face was none other than Yin Mo's. Yin Mo, the Inferno Master God of the ancient era. The Inferno Master God said softly and coldly, "It's just a pity that the title of Inferno in this lifetime can only belong to me." With that said, the Inferno Master God struck out with another palm strike, destroying Yin Mo's godly spirit directly. "What old ancestor? I'm not related to you at all. I've merely cultivated your legacy. That's all. And now, I've more or less cultivated your legacy. As for you, it's time for you to leave as well." The Inferno Master God said softly as he wiped off the blood on his face cold and emotionless. This scene had everyone shocked. No one would have thought that the Inferno Master God would actually do something like this. Acknowledging his ancestors was in fact a hidden killing intent. Right in front of everyone, he had successfully ambushed and killed Yin Mo. Seems like Lingxiao Pavilion has truly not appeared for a long time. I wonder how ruthless these 36 Master Gods are in the current Nine Heavens divine world. Jiangchen sighed in his heart. If not for these 36 Master Gods, he would not have fallen back then. As for these 36 people, each and every one of them were ruthless people. Not a single one of them was a good person. At this moment, the black-haired old man was dumbfounded as he stood rooted to the ground, unable to react for a long time. A God King died just like that? Inferno! You're courting death. Tens of breaths later, the black-haired old man regained his senses and howled out in rage. At the same time, a heaven-covering aura burst forth from the depths of Lingxiao Pavilion's main hall. Chapter 9:14. The so-called Foundation was the strongest combat power in the world right now. The reason why Firmament Pavilion chose to come into being at this time was not only because the Golden Age was coming, but also because they had the Foundation, one pavilion with two gods. Once they came into being, how many forces in the world would dare to go against them? But who would have thought that the moment they came into being, Firmament Pavilion would lose a God King? At this moment, Firmament Pavilion was completely enraged. With a furious roar, a stalwart man walked out from the depths of Firmament Pavilion. He had a head of purple hair. Even his eyes and pupils were purple. As he walked over step by step, purple flowers bloomed under his feet like purplish gold flowers. Great Tao runes circled around him. With every step he took, when the soles of his feet came into contact with the ground, there would be sounds of chanting. This was a peak God King. "Kneel down, all of you." The man spoke softly as his aura erupted and swept out like a tidal wave. Wave after wave struck the surroundings, causing the void to crack inch by inch. A black void storm with thunderbolts flooded the surroundings. Even Old Chai and the High Wind Master God, who were fighting fiercely in the void, were forced to stop and retreat to the side. Thud! With a dull thud, everyone saw the Inferno Master God's face turn pale with cold sweat all over his forehead. With a thud, he was forcefully suppressed and knelt down in the air. Clearly, this purple-haired man was targeting the Inferno Master God. However, in just 3 breaths of time, more and more people could not withstand the pressure and knelt down one after another. "Come here, all of you," Katsura Matsuda said softly. With a wave of his hand, he brought Jiang Chun to his side. Then, an aura comparable to that of a god king erupted from Katsura Matsuda and turned into a dazzling barrier of light that enveloped the group from the sky-reaching church. At the same time, the light master god, darkness, inferno, and high wind joined forces and stood together to resist the purple-haired man's aura. Humph! The purple-haired man snorted softly. His voice was like thunder from the 9 heavens, exploding in everyone's ears. Poof! In an instant, many people spat out mouthfuls of blood, bleeding from their 7 orifices. A few people even had their souls extinguished. This is the power of a peak god king, under the help of the Radiant Master God and the others. The Inferno Master God could be considered to have recovered somewhat. The few peak lords stood together. All of them looked pale as cold sweat dripped from their foreheads. They had never thought that High Heaven Pavilion, which had been in seclusion for several generations, would actually have a peak divine king with vigorous vitality. Back then, we gathered the strength of 36 people to kill Tian Chun. Now, how many of us are there? How are we supposed to contend against this fellow? The Darkness Master God said in a deep voice, showing signs of wanting to retreat. All of them will come. The High Wind Master God said, in this world, it's ultimately the 36 of us who call the shots. That's right. 3,000 years ago, we managed to kill Tian Chun with great difficulty. The 9th firmament is now in our hands. 3,000 years later, even if a golden age were to descend, even if a peak power were to appear, we would never hand over the authority of the world. The Radiant Master God nodded. However, after half an hour, apart from the few of them, no other peak lords had descended. As for that purple-haired man, he seemed to be toying with them. His aura was neither high nor low, and he did not take the lives of the Radiant Master God and the others. In the distance, Martial God took everything in. A hint of mockery appeared at the corners of his lips as he said softly, "There's going to be a change of dynasty after all." With that, Martial God left right away. And right now, the most relaxed person present was none other than 9th Heaven's Lair. No one was protecting him, but he stood there alone with the decree floating above his head, blocking out the purple-haired man's aura completely. However, 9th Heaven's Lair's expression was very ugly. He was very resentful. Looking at Jiang Chun, he said exasperatedly, "Don't you know how to drag me over as well?" "This, you'll have to ask my sect master," Jiang Chun said helplessly. "As you can see, I can't even protect myself right now. I'm relying on my sect master to support me." "Kid, do you still need our protection?" Katsura Matsuda looked at 9th Heaven's Lair mockingly and said, "That person beside you is very strong." "That person beside me? Where is that person?" Everyone was puzzled. There was no one beside 9th Heaven's Lair. Even Black Mask had retreated a long time ago. Sect Master of the Sky reaching school, good eyesight. Suddenly, ripples spread out around 9th Heaven's Lair. Then, runes appeared, and an enchanting woman with red lips and white teeth appeared beside 9th Heaven's Lair. She was wearing a light pink long dress. Her hair was slightly curled, and her facial features were exquisite, as if they were carved out by a heavenly craftsman, especially her waist, which could be held with a single arm. Western Heaven Demon God. At this moment, the purple-haired man's expression turned serious, and he retracted the aura he was emitting. His face was full of fear as he stared at the enchanting woman beside 9th Heaven's Lair and said, "I didn't expect you to still be alive. Purple Marquis, you're still here. How can I bear to leave this world?" The Western Heaven Demon God licked her coquettish red lips, as if teasing Purple Marquis, and said, Do you want to know how I got through all these years? Why don't we find a place where no one is around, and I'll tell you." As soon as she said this, Purple Marquis's body trembled, and a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. There was also a trace of disgust. "Since you've appeared, then the Western Heaven Demon race has also come into being, right?" Purple Marquis said coldly. "They all chose to come into being in this era. Didn't your Lingxiao Pavilion also come into being?" The Western Heaven Demon god mocked, then shook his head and said, "My Western Heaven Demon race won't come into being for the time being. I'm only taking action now because of my little nephew." Little nephew? Nephew? The group was dumbfounded. Even Ninth Heaven's Lair was a little confused. Since when did the Nine Heavens Court have anything to do with the Western Heaven Demon race? And he didn't know when this Western Heaven Demon god came to his side. Only Purple Marquis knew about the Western Heaven Demon race, and his expression was a little calmer. He said, "It seems that the rumors are true. The Western Heaven Demon race and the Nine Heavens Court had a marriage alliance back then." "Oh yes." The Western Heaven Demon god smiled charmingly and said, "Today, what should we do? Reminisce about old times? My little nephew came to Lingxiao Pavilion today to establish his authority." Hearing this, Purple Marquis's face darkened. "Establish authority? You guys broke through 9 gates in a row. Haven't you established your authority yet? The decree shown on Lingxiao Pavilion, isn't that establishing your authority? How about we kill these people first? Just a few sovereigns, and they dare to be presumptuous here." Purple Marquis said softly, looking at the Sovereign of Light and the others. Especially when he looked at the Sovereign of Flames. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. No, I think you should take care of yourself first." The Western Heaven Demon god said softly. "He is here." Chapter 9:15. He's here? Who is he? Everyone was confused. Purple Marquis's face turned pale, and the fear in his eyes turned into fear. Whoosh! The next moment, before anyone could react, Purple Marquis broke into the void and escaped. What's going on? A peak divine king ran away? The group of people was completely dumbfounded, and they were even more confused. At the same time, they were also guessing who the he that the Western Heaven Demon God was talking about. Just what kind of person was it to actually be able to scare away a peak divine king? "Purple Marquis, why are you running away?" After a few breaths, a voice full of mockery rang out. Everyone looked back and saw an old man with a walking stick, dressed in tattered clothes, slowly walking towards the main hall of High Heaven Pavilion. Is that him? This old man doesn't look special. Even Jiangchen was confused. This old man had no trace of divine power, and he did not even show any divine light. He was even limping when he walked. Cultivators were able to reforge their bodies. If this old man was really a cultivator, he would be able to recover from his crippled leg by simply reforging his body. However, since this person could come here and scare Purple Marquis away, it meant that this person was not simple. Disperse. Before the flourishing age, no fighting is allowed. After a few breaths, the old man came to the main hall of Lingxiao Pavilion. He looked around and said, "If you don't listen, don't blame me when you die or are destroyed." "You are?" The Master God of Light frowned. He had never heard of such a person in the divine world of 9 heavens. "Song State, Tinya," the old man said softly. With that, the old man chuckled and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, everyone present, including Jiang Chun, was moved. There were so many states in the divine world of 9 heavens, but Song State was not one of them. Song State was very special. It was the center of the divine world of 9 heavens and was known as the Holy Land of the divine world of 9 heavens. Since ancient times, no living thing in the world could enter Song State without the permission of the Lord of Song State. Trespassers will be killed without mercy. But speaking of which, it was strange. From ancient times until now, that Song Prefecture was very mysterious and gave people a very strong feeling. However, The Tsang Prefecture had never participated in the matter of dominating the ninth heaven divine world. In fact, even during several major upheavals, no one from the Tsang state had come out. But now, someone from the Tsang state had actually come out. Furthermore, were the words of this old man threatening them? Tsang state's holy land, world's edge, Katsura Matsuda said in a deep voice. Sect leader, does the world's edge really exist? Jiangchen asked. He had heard of the world's edge before. However, it was hard to say whether the world's edge really existed or not. Some people said that it was a mystical world that surpassed the ninth heaven divine world, and the strongest group of people of the ninth heaven divine world lived there. There were also rumors that it was a place of sacrifice and contained an enormous secret. There were even people who speculated that there was no such place as Tianya at all, and the reason why the Tsang Prefecture transcended the various prefectures of the nine heavens divine world was because there was a peerless divine emperor in the Tsang Prefecture. However, all of these were just guesses. Below the heavens, above the world's edge, the universe is divided, the heavens and the earth are divided. Above the head is light, below the feet is darkness, born in the sky, falling into the darkness from the abyss, ascending to the ninth heaven. The eastern purple chi is indestructible, Katsura Matsuda said. This was like a limerick. Jiangchen had also heard of it before, but he had never paid attention to it before. However, when this limerick came from Katsura Matsuda's mouth, it was somewhat unusual. Every line of this limerick reflects a peak power. Katsura Matsuda explained, the world's edge, the sky-reaching church, the light palace, the Lingxiao pavilion, the nine heavens imperial court, and the Dongfang imperial clan. These are the 6 most powerful forces recorded in history. Other than the world's edge, you should have heard of the other powers, right? You should have even seen them before. Hearing that, Jiangchen couldn't help but nod. He was now a member of the sky-reaching church. How could he not have seen them before? As for the Lingxiao pavilion and the nine heavens imperial court, Jiangchen had also seen them before. As for the light palace and the Dongfang imperial clan, although Jiangchen had heard of them before, he had indeed never seen them before. However, thinking about it carefully, since those powers were able to be compiled into a limerick and spread until now, they should be extremely powerful, or even peak powers. The foundation of the Light Master God's bloodline is the Light Palace. However, an accident happened to the Light Palace, and its current location is unknown. As for the Dongfang Imperial Clan, they should be the Dongfang clan's ancestor clan. Perhaps they have already appeared in the world, but have not moved about in the world. Katsura Matsuda said. Then he looked to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and said, as for the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, isn't this boy before us one of them? Then, Sect Master, is this limmer divided according to strength? Jiangchen asked. A very long time ago, that was indeed the case, Katsura Matsuda said with a nod. In that ancient era, the sky-reaching church was known as the second strongest power in the divine realm of the nine heavens. As for that strongest power, it was the world's edge. Bullshit. When my nine heavens imperial court was at its peak, it was not inferior to the Lingxiao pavilion. Zhou Tianzhong was furious. How could they be ranked based on a limerick? Toward that, Katsura Matsuda only laughed and said, since that's the case, why didn't the Nine Heavens Imperial Court dare to go to the Tsang province when it was at its peak? What I mean is, my Nine Heavens Imperial Court is stronger than the Lingxiao Pavilion. Zhou Tianzhong said in a deep voice, your sky-reaching church is so capable. Why didn't you go to the Tsang province to investigate? What do you think? Katsura Matsuda said unhappily. The world did not know about the Tsang province's world's edge, but which of the powers in the limerick did not know about it? It was a power that truly existed. It was indestructible since ancient times, but it had always stood aloof from worldly affairs. The world's edge was like a scale that weighed the divine realm of the nine heavens, restricting the various powers and even the peak experts. Their existence was like a rule, a kind of order that had never been broken since ancient times. Why would such an indestructible and invincible power make a move this time? Zhou Tianzhong was puzzled. He looked at the western heaven demon god beside him and asked. Purple Marquis ran away as soon as he saw that old man from the world's edge. Could it be that the Lingxiao Pavilion has some enmity with the world's edge? As soon as he said that, the western heaven demon god's expression became serious. He said, Purple Marquis is the only person who came out of the Tsang province alive. What? Purple Marquis went to the Tsang province? No wonder. Everyone cried out in surprise. This was a huge secret. Everyone knew that if one trespassed into the Tsang province without the permission of the Tsang province's owner, they would die without a doubt. Purple Marquis definitely did not get the permission of the Tsang province's owner back then, but he could still come out alive. There must be something hidden in this. But there's another legend. The Western Heaven Demon God said, Purple Marquis was originally a creature of the Tsang province, a disciple of the world's edge. Chapter 9:16. Purple Marquis, a peak divine king, was almost invincible in this era. Just like when he entered the arena, he suppressed all the heroes with his strength alone. His aura was so strong that even Katsura Matsuda and the Western demonic god could only defend and not attack. However, when facing the elder from the world's edge, he didn't even have the courage to attack. He directly escaped into the void. He didn't even care about his own Lingxiao Pavilion. From this, it could be seen how much he feared the elder, or rather, the world's edge. Under the heavens, above the world's edge, the universe is divided, the sky is bright, and the feet are dark. Born in the sky, they fall into the darkness. Born in the abyss, they ascend to the 9 heavens. The purple chi of the east is indestructible, Jiangchen whispered. This limerick seemed to contain some kind of secret. However, he couldn't figure it out. He only knew that the golden age was coming, and the world was about to change. The world's edge is the guardian of the balance of this world. The Western demonic god said, perhaps the people of the world's edge came out this time just to give the people of the future a chance. Give the people of the future a chance? Jiangchen was puzzled. Think about it. All the top forces have come out, and the ones fighting for supremacy are those top experts. How can the people of the future compete with these people? The world's edge has always maintained some kind of balance, not for an individual, but for the entire divine realm of the 9 heavens. Jiangchen was a little excited when he heard that. If the world's edge really had such thoughts, then he would have more opportunities in this life, including Jianglu, Wakako, Xiao Qingyi, and the others. They could all shine in the golden age. However, did the world's edge really have such strength? One had to know that this world was too complicated. It was like a pool of muddy water. Not only was it deep, but it was also turbid. The world's edge was eternal. But was it really invincible? Could the world's edge really intimidate everyone? What about the divine emperor clan? Will they also fear the world's edge? Zhou Tianchong asked. Maybe I won't be so afraid, but I'll still have to give the world's edge some face. Katsura Matsuda said. At that time, the sky-reaching church didn't perish even though it encountered a great calamity. It wasn't only because the sky-reaching church was powerful. Part of the reason was related to the world's edge. Headmaster, do you mean to say that the world's edge secretly protected the sky-reaching schools? Luo Shu asked. The great calamity that the heavenly reaching church encountered back then had always been a mystery. Some people only knew that the calamity of the sky-reaching church was related to the great thousand world outside the southern wall. However, even Katsura Matsuda had no idea what was going on. It was all because too much time had passed. However, there was one thing that could be confirmed. When the heavenly reaching church was in the most critical moment, the world's edge had indeed taken action. Let's all go back. The Western demonic deity said softly, since the world's edge has made a move this time, there will definitely be a follow-up. We will know after a while. Indeed, the entire 9 heavens divine world now depends on the world's edge. Katsura Matsuda sighed. There was a hint of bitterness in his words. In that limerick, The sky-reaching church was second only to the world's edge. But now, the world's edge was still at the peak, while the sky-reaching church was in decline. What kind of gap was this? As the headmaster of the sky-reaching church, Katsura Matsuda naturally had indescribable bitterness, helplessness, and unwillingness in his heart. "Do you want to go back with us or go to the Jotian court?" Katsura Matsuda asked. Hearing this, Jiangchen frowned and thought for a while. Then he said, "Let's go home." Jiangchen thought very clearly. No matter who he was in his previous life, in this life he was a disciple of the sky-reaching church. Even if the sky-reaching church was the enemy of the whole world, he was still a member of the sky-reaching church and would not shrink back. Moreover, the sky-reaching church was Jiangchen's home in this life. "Take my little sister with you," Zhou Qianzhong said softly. "She only remembers you now. Aren't you worried about her safety?" Jiangchen asked. It should be known that although the people of the sky-reaching church were all-powerful, their true foundation was probably not as strong as the Jotian court. If Zhou Qianzhong followed Jiangchen back to the sky-reaching church, the situation would be dangerous if the enemies of the sky-reaching church came to find them. "You are the grand tutor of the Jotian court." Zhou Qianzhong only said this one sentence. Then he cupped his hands at the Western Heaven Monster deity and said, "This cough. How should I address you? Can you send me back to the Jotian sect?" "Just call me Aunt. Your father and I are old friends," the Western Heaven Monster deity said with a smile. "Old friends? This Zhou Qianzhong has such a romantic history?" The group was stunned. Even Zhou Qianzhong was dumbfounded. What was going on? What was going on? The Western Heaven Monster deity was also stunned for a moment. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Sorry, I haven't communicated with anyone for a long time. My words are a bit inaccurate. Your father and I are old friends." Phew! Zhou Qianzhong breathed a sigh of relief. If the Western Heaven Monster deity was really old friends with Zhou Qianzhong, then wouldn't the Jotian court have another queen? In the end, everyone retreated, and the Lingxiao Pavilion also quieted down. Not long after everyone left, Purple Marquis walked out of the void. His face was gloomy as he looked in the direction of the Tsang state. A trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. Beside him, the black-haired old man lowered his head. No one knew what he was thinking. "Go to the Poison God Temple and tell the Poison God Emperor that the world's edge has taken action." After a dozen breaths, Purple Marquis said to the black-haired old man, "Pavilion Master, do we really need to alarm the Poison God Emperor?" The black-haired old man frowned and said, "The God Emperor clan has never opposed the world's edge. Today is different from the past." Purple Marquis said in a low voice, "The common people of the world all think that this is a simple golden age. They don't know that this is a great era. What Jotian divine world? What 6 realms of the past? Even the foreign lands, in this era, either exist or be destroyed. Everything will be assimilated. All the worlds will return to the greater thousand." The black-haired old man seemed to know some secrets. After hearing this, his body couldn't help but tremble. He asked tentatively, "Pavilion Master, you mean?" "That's right, the southern wall will be broken." Purple Marquis said in a low voice, "When the time comes, the real great era will come. Although I am a peak god king, I am still far from being a god emperor. Moreover, even a god emperor would find it difficult to gain a foothold in the greater thousand world, let alone a mortal like me. If others heard this, they would definitely be shocked. A peak god king actually called himself a mortal. Pavilion Master, I really don't know if the greater thousand world outside the southern wall is really that strong?" the black-haired old man asked. "That is the real world," Purple Marquis said with a trace of reverence and yearning in his eyes. "In the end, our place is just a cage, a tomb, a burial ground." Chapter 917. Cage? Burial ground? Was this referring to the 9 heavens divine world, or the entire 6 realms? The black-haired old man did not dare to ask any more questions. This matter involved a higher level of secrecy and even a taboo. He hurriedly left and headed to the Poison God Temple to report the matter at the horizon. Purple Marquis stood at the entrance of the main hall. After a long time, he sighed heavily and said softly, "Corpse nurturing land. Is what you're doing right or wrong?" At the same time, in the sky-reaching church, Jiangchen and the others sat at the bottom of the main hall, while Katsura Matsuda sat at the seat directly above. He smiled at Jiangchen and asked, "Tianchen Divine King, do you want this seat?" Jiangchen's face darkened when he heard that. He said snappily, "Are you teasing me, Sect Master? I didn't expect Junior Brother to be the Tianchen Divine King from 3,000 years ago." De Xiong had been exclaiming ever since he returned. His gaze was fixed on Jiangchen, as if he had a lot of doubts. "Senior brother and senior sister, that was my previous life," Jiangchen said softly. "In this life, I'm Jiangchen, a disciple of the sky-reaching church. Junior brother, it's enough that you have the heart," the Book of Luo said. "It's just that there are some things that you have to face eventually, aren't there?" Jiangchen's expression froze slightly when he heard that. He knew what the Book of Luo meant. Jiangchen would face those 36 peak chief gods head-on sooner or later. And those who had followed him in the past, Jiangchen would take revenge on them one by one. Jiangchen would rebuild the Chuanzuan sect in the godless continent. Jiangchen would rebuild Tenshin Shinzo in the Nine Heavens divine world. Sect Master, the Golden Age is coming. All the hidden forces are about to come out. What are those 36 peak chief gods? De Xiong asked doubtfully. "Why didn't you kill them just now? Do you think those 36 peak chief gods are vegetarians?" Katsura Matsuda pursed his lips and said, "As far as I know, the Radiant Overgod lineage originated from the Radiant Palace. That's a prehistoric giant that can't come out for some reason. But they can't be underestimated. Ling Feng and Lai Yin, those two peak chief gods' lineage. Their relationship with the Emperor's lineage. Huh?" At this point, Tingtao waved his hand and said, "Don't think about it. Since Tianya has intervened, the balance of the world still exists for now. It hasn't been broken." "Is the world's edge really that powerful?" Tontian asked. "This force has never declined?" "It has never declined. It has always been glorious. It just never makes a move." Song Tingtao's face was full of doubt. He was also very curious about the world's edge. What kind of existence was that? Back then, when the other side attacked the 6 realms, only the divine realm remained. At that time, the world's edge did not make a move. But now, was the world's edge going to make a move just because of Golden Age? "Sect Master, when I was training outside, I heard a rumor," the Red Caltrip Yarn said. "It said that it's not just the firmament, but the entire 6 realms are burial grounds and corpses. It seems like they're nurturing the corpse of some great figure. Don't ever mention that again." Katsura Matsuda's face suddenly darkened, and he roared angrily. This scene left everyone dumbfounded. One had to know that Katsura Matsuda had always been very kind to his disciples and had never been angry. Even Tong Tian, who had joined the sect the earliest, had never seen Song Tingtao rebuke anyone. But today, the Red Caltrip Yarn was actually reprimanded by Katsura Matsuda just because of one sentence. Why? There are some things that haven't been confirmed yet, so don't speak carelessly," Katsura Matsuda said in a deep voice. "Otherwise, it'll bring about a disaster." "Did you touch a taboo?" Jiangchen asked. "It's not just a taboo." Katsura Matsuda's expression was very serious as he said, "The water in this world is really deep. Above this, there's no limit." As he said that, Katsura Matsuda pointed to the top of his head. "Are you talking about the Greater Thousand Realms outside the Southern Wall?" Luo Shu asked. "The Greater Thousand Realms is just a parallel world to ours, but our world is protected by the Southern Wall," Katsura Matsuda explained. "And above the Greater Thousand Realms, there's a higher plane?" Jiangchen was shocked. After Jiangchen's rebirth, he had also learned some secrets. The so-called Heavens Beyond and Heavens did not seem to be referring to the Greater Thousand Realms outside the Southern Wall. Then, what kind of place was the Heavens Beyond and Heavens? "Go and cultivate." It won't be long before the heavens beyond announce it to the world. Katsura Matsuda did not want to talk more about this matter. After waving his hand, he disappeared from this place. Jiangchun and the others looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Then they dispersed. At the same time, in the back mountain of the sky-reaching church, in a small world surrounded by restrictions and arrays, Katsura Matsuda and Old Chai stood together. In front of them, there was a shabby bronze coffin. The surface of the bronze coffin was covered with runes of the Great Tao, but it was also full of rust. It was hard to imagine how long it would take for this bronze coffin covered with runes of the Great Tao to be full of rust. Logically speaking, this bronze coffin was indestructible. Not even a speck of dust would appear. Is there still no movement? Katsura Matsuda asked. There was some movement a while ago, but there hasn't been any movement recently. Old Chai said in a deep voice. Could it be that the way back has been cut off? Cut off? Impossible. Katsura Matsuda denied with certainty and said, if that road has been cut off, then no one can come back. At this point, Katsura Matsuda pointed at his feet and said, that person from the Eternal Fortress has returned. This means that the road has not been cut off. The evil venerable? Old Chai whispered in surprise and said, he returned really quickly. If Jiangchun was here, he would definitely be shocked. How did Katsura Matsuda and Old Chai know about the evil venerable? That monk was neither a Buddha nor a devil. Now, he was the strongest person in the Eternal Fortress. He was also called the evil venerable. Jiangchun still remembered very clearly that the old monk kept saying the words return and return. Now that he thought about it carefully, perhaps the evil venerable and Katsura Matsuda were the same group of people. About Tian Song, do we need to tell him? Old Chai suddenly asked. Now that he hasn't even completed the transformation of his spirit body, what's the use of telling him? Katsura Matsuda said unhappily. Among all the reincarnators, only he has no news. Perhaps he has fallen into oblivion and can't return. That person is so powerful. Back then, he cut off the darkness, drowned out the light, and protected the entire 6 realms. Old Chai was shocked and said, how can such a person fall into oblivion? It is because he is too powerful that he will definitely be obstructed and even killed on his way back. Katsura Matsuda sighed. I really hope he can come back. Chapter 918. Very few people knew what had happened in the past. Even Katsura Matsuda and the others only knew a little. The only thing they were certain of was that in a certain era, a group of people had left this place and entered another mysterious world. Perhaps they had gone to war, or perhaps something had happened to them and they had no choice but to leave. However, that group of people was indestructible. Even if the sky collapsed and the earth caved in, they would never die. Their lifespans were eternal, and their lives would never wither unless they were killed. Because of this, there had always been a rumor that that group of people would return. This coffin in the sky-reaching church was the most precious treasure that the sky-reaching church had offered sacrifices to for generations. It could also be considered a coordinate. If those who had left wanted to return, they would have to cross the endless river of time and history. They would have to cross the endless sea of chaos and even some unknown areas. That place was isolated from everything, and there was no direction to speak of. Even the universe was reversed, and everything was illusory. If they wanted to return, they had to have coordinates. Therefore, those who had left had all left their coordinates. In this world, there were many top sects and ancient factions that had things like this bronze coffin. They were all coordinates that were waiting for a certain person to return. That person, perhaps he really won't be able to return. Katsura Matsuda sighed. Ever since the ancestors left, there has been news of everyone except for that person. There has been no news at all. Perhaps he just encountered some difficulties and troubles, Old Chai guessed. I can't imagine where they went. One year there might be tens of thousands of years here, or even several eras. Even so, they should have sent back some news. Katsura Matsuda sighed. With that, Katsura Matsudo waved his hand, indicating that they should not mention this matter anymore. He had old Chai guard this place. This was the last foundation of the sky-reaching church. At the same time, in the Chejai sect, Hong Yi once again arrived before the altar. At this moment, the broken skull flickered with a lustrous radiance like star sand. Wisps of life energy flowed around it, and an indescribable aura appeared. In the broken skull, in the originally empty eye sockets, strands of starlight actually appeared, accompanied by chaos and some unknown substances. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a passageway that connected to a faraway place. The return path has been opened. Hong Yi was shocked. Looking at the broken skull, she asked, "Senior, are they coming back?" "That person from my ground thorough sect has already found his way back. He's currently on his way back." A voice was emitted from the skull. It was also filled with excitement. When Hong Yi heard this, his expression turned serious and his heart burned with passion. That person was the founder of the Cleaver sect, one of the strongest people in the world. Only at a certain point in time, this person from the Cleaver sect also left, heading far away. It was as if he wanted to follow in the footsteps of his ancestors, embarking on an unknown journey. Now, after a few generations, this supreme figure was finally going to return. "I can feel that there are a few other passages nearby that have been opened," the skull said in a deep voice. "Perhaps it's not just one or two people who have returned this time, but a large group. In fact, even the people from the ancient times will return." When Hong Yi heard this, she clenched her fists tightly, looking extremely excited. As the sect master of the ground thorough sect, she had obtained a great opportunity, so she knew some ancient secrets. If that group of ancestors could return, then the 6 realms could still be saved. "That person, can you sense it?" Hong Yi asked. "There's no news at all. Not a trace of aura. It's as if he has disappeared." The skull sighed. "Perhaps he really has disappeared, but he's still here." Hong Yi was puzzled. The skull knew who the he that Hong Yi was talking about was, but he told her that this he was not the he she was talking about. Perhaps there was some connection between the two, but they were definitely not the same person. "You should also prepare. It's time to settle the matter between the sky-penetrating church and the ground thorough sect," the skull said. "Coupled with the appearance of the people from the world's edge, the world will be in turmoil from now on, and even blood will fill the sky." "I know." Hong Yi nodded. After remaining silent in front of the altar for a while, she left. On the other side in the Nine Heavens sect, to be exact, it should be called the Nine Heavens Empire now. In the deepest part of the empire, on the cliff behind the bronze door, at this moment, Zhou Tianzhong and the Western demon god were standing there. In front of them, Zhou Shen stood alone quietly. His eyes flickered with a dazzling light, as if the sun was going to illuminate the heavens and myriad realms. "He's coming back." After a dozen breaths, Zhou Shen suddenly spoke and then laughed wildly. "Ha ha. No one can stop my Nine Heavens Empire." "Father, the Grand Ancestor is coming back?" Zhou Tianzhong hurriedly asked. "I can sense it. His aura is behind the bronze door." Zhou Shen was excited. He waved his hand and pointed at the sky and earth, saying, "When the Grand Ancestor returns, the world will completely submit to my Nine Heavens Empire. At that time, the so-called Song Prefecture, the so-called World's Edge, will all submit." If others heard this, they would definitely be shocked. Song Prefecture, the World's Edge, what kind of supreme existence was that? It had never been seen or declined since ancient times. According to the doggerel ranking, the World's Edge was first, and the Nine Heavens Empire's true ranking was even behind Lingxiao Pavilion. But now, Zhou Shen could actually say such words. Then there was only one possibility. The person who was returning from the Nine Heavens Empire was extremely powerful, even invincible. During this period of time, leave everything to Tian Song to manage. Zhou Qiansui and I are going to the lower realm. Zhou Shen suddenly said, "Your uncle has been in the lower realm for a long time. It's time to bring him back." Uncle Zhou Yuan, he is willing to come back? Zhou Qianzhong asked. If he's willing to return, what's the harm in giving him the position of Imperial Lord? We're family to begin with, Zhou Shen said seriously. You have to know that as long as the Nine Heavens Empire is not destroyed, it's the same no matter who is the Imperial Lord. I understand. Zhou Qianzhong nodded. However, he was very puzzled. Why did Zhou Shun and Zhou Qiansui hand over the authority of the Nine Heavens Empire to Tian Song when they were not around? One had to know that the Tian Song that Zhou Shun mentioned was Jiang Chun. Imperial Lord, you seem to value Tian Song a lot. The Western Demon God asked, I think he's just a lower true god now. Is there a need to value him so much? Moreover, that person might not be able to return. Zhou Shun's face suddenly darkened. He stared at the Western Demon God and said coldly, Shut up. That person will definitely return. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.